Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobler, of course.
Hello.
Hello. Is your mic now not catching that? Go ahead, talk again.
Testing.
Oh, no, I think that's right. I was paranoid because my mic, I had to manually reset it when I opened StreamYard because it gave me a problem. And now I know I have mine set the right way, so that's good. 512 to start things off here in the YouTube chat, 237 filing in over on Rumble. Let's smash that like button wherever we are. Smash that subscribe button. We crossed 115,000
zoom in
on YouTube.
There we go.
That's cool. Yeah, there you go. That looks better. Yes, thanks everybody for helping us cross 115K. That's a fun little milestone there over on YouTube. So smash that subscribe button if you have not already. We are close to wrapping at least this phase of production on the Uhuru doc. I got a couple interviews later today that Russ will be filming. And then that is essentially a wrap on this portion of it. A couple other things I think we're going to grab before we leave, right?
Yeah. We were going to do a creepy crawl into the mayor's house with Uhuru, rearrange the furniture when the mayor's out.
Yeah, exactly.
Just freak him out.
Yeah.
We'll get some footage of that.
For Halloween, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It is post-Labor Day. Hope everybody had a good Labor Day. Fall is unofficially here. It's not officially fall yet, but we are now through the heart of the summer season. So appreciate you all being here today. Why don't we start things off? We're just giving you guys a little taste of our interview with Omali Yeshitela. What do you think?
Sure.
All right. So this is a portion of the interview. This is toward the end of our interview where Russ asked Omali about the treatment of a more mainstream civil rights movement, if you want to call it that, Black Lives Matter, versus the treatment of the Uhuru movement here. So this is very raw, compressed footage off the camera microphone. So this is nowhere near the finished product. This is just the rawest of the raw. We don't even have the mic'd up footage for this because it's ultra high def. So it took until this show to even get this broadcast ready. So forgive the echo in the room that will not be there in the final product. But here is some of Omali Yeshitela talking about the difference in treatment between Uhuru and BLM. Yeah, let's full screen it. Why not?
Yep.
The difference in how movements or entities such as the Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Movement are treated compared to the Uhuru movement. How, as you mentioned, millions and millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars have gone to facilitate whatever their agenda is on the one hand, and on the other hand, where everything is done to crush what it is that we try to do. And this is one of the reasons that makes the discussion I'm having with you so important now. This is one of the reasons that makes your presence here in St. Louis important now. It gives the people an opportunity to break from the direction of a colonial power and to establish a relationship directly with colonized peoples ourselves. The fact is that the government, its institutions do not want us to be successful because success undermines the system. In fact, the system and people who are connected to it actually celebrates every loss that we might have. When we built the basketball court here in North St. Louis, as I mentioned, we spent $160,000 on that basketball court just so that young Africans could have just a place to play basketball. I mean, that's not, what's seditious about that? You know, what's so problematic about that?
So there you go. There's a little sample. That's just a little bit of what we got. We had overall 2 days, almost 9 hours worth of interview with the chairman. Well over 8 hours. Haven't done the math exactly, but my StreamYard recordings, because I kind of joined in remotely on the computer. Yeah, my two recordings were like one pushed up on 5, one pushed up on 4. So that's almost 9 hours. Almost 9 hours worth of footage with the chairman. So it was an epic 2-day session. And yeah, we're looking forward to editing it together. You're muted or something.
It was just amazing, the level of passion. You know, he's almost 84 years old. He was just recovering from COVID. And if anything, he got more pumped up and really saved the best for last. Like the last couple of hours, just he was on fire. You know, I mean, it's just amazing to have that much passion and enthusiasm and determination, especially being in the trenches for as long as he has, which is pretty much his entire life, in that activist space, to not be burned out, to not be disillusioned, to not be discouraged, and to maintain his integrity and to have not sold out in all these years.
Yeah. I mean, it is an epic story, from being politically activated by the murder of Emmett Till when he was just a teenager, to serving overseas in the army, to coming back and getting involved in the civil rights Black Power movement, to founding the African People's Socialist Party, to clashes with the police through the 80s and the 90s, to going to Africa in the early 2000s, and then coming back and then forming this new chapter in St. Louis after the killing of Mike Brown through the case. I mean, it's just one battle after another, after another, after another, and they only seem to escalate in terms of the stakes, in terms of the intensity, in terms of the ferocity of the movement. So it really is. I mean, it really is an epic story. I mean, that's not an overstatement, I don't think. And that's why we had 9 hours worth of material. I mean, there were certain questions where we asked and he went off for a half an hour, right? I mean, there were certain answers that were a half hour long that could be little episodes in themselves. That's why it's I mean, we're hoping to get this into a feature film, but it's a lot. It's a lot for one piece. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, you know, each one of these chapters is its own story. Really is.
Well, and in doing a lot of the research for this, so many of the Black Power era activists really wound up just becoming sheepdogs for the Democratic Party. You know, you look at John Lewis, you look at Bobby Rush, you look at John Conyers, like they all just ended up being, you know, a kind of fake face for the Democratic Party to persuade people that that was really a home for people who wanted to see meaningful systemic change. And of course, it never was. You know, we remember that was John Lewis who lied about meeting the Clintons in the 60s as opposed to Bernie Sanders. Just really disgusting and amazing stuff. Like, you go back, I actually talked to the chairman about this a little bit. There's on HBO, it's either called The Murder of Fred Hampton or The Assassination of Fred Hampton. It's a documentary that was made in 1971. So it's really just very raw kind of footage, documentary footage. And you see him there with Bobby Rush, who co-founded the Black Panthers chapter there in Chicago with him. And he went on to be this very Congressional Black Caucus, just subordinate to Democratic Party leadership, corrupt sheepdog. Most of them did. So, that is certainly a path that was available to the leaders of that generation who wanted to go that way, because as we know with the Democrats, there's nothing they like better than to be able to hide behind people of that identity or people who are perceived that way. And he certainly has the oratorical skills to have gone that way, and he didn't, and he paid the price for it, and he continues to pay the price for it. He's still appealing this very, very insane prosecution that the Biden administration brought against him.
Well, yeah, that's a pattern that you notice too, is that their clashes when it comes to like political leadership are almost always with Democrats,
Right.
not necessarily with Republicans, because Democrats have an interest in sort of curbing the excesses of the Black Power movement because they rely on Black votes, whereas Republicans aren't fishing in that pool anyway. So it doesn't matter as much to them. So whether it was JFK or Jimmy Carter or in the end, Joe Biden, that was a pattern that you saw over and over again. Like their big clashes were against Democratic Party brass. And so, yeah, we got into all of that. It's going to be an epic project. We can't wait to get more into it. And thank you all for helping us out, getting it made. And thanks to Eric, by the way, our crewman, who was amazing throughout the process and helping us out. Came to St. Louis just to help us do this. So awesome job.
Well, you know what? Foreshadowing the next story, just to show solidarity with the migrants. I took them out to dinner last night in appreciation, and we ate some alligator.
Oh, yeah, you ate some alligator. Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. Solidarity with the migrants. We ate some alligator. You should have taken a video of that. Sent it, tagged Ron DeSantis in that video. Put it up on Twitter.
We have it on good authority. This was a former guard at Alligator Alcatraz.
A former guard at Alligator Alcatraz. All right. Well, let's on that note, let's jump right in. All right, folks. So we got a couple of fun ones today coming out of the Labor Day weekend. This is a fun one here. We're going to get a lot of use out of Mike Rappaport today for this segment. Florida may lose $218 million on empty Alligator Alcatraz as judge orders shutdown. Florida could be on the hook for $218 million the state spent to convert a remote training airport in the Everglades into an immigration detention center dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. The center may soon become completely empty as a judge upheld her decision late Wednesday, ordering operations to wind down indefinitely. Shutting down the facility for the time being would cost the state $15 million to $20 million immediately, and it would cost another $15 million to $20 million to reinstall structures if Florida is allowed to reopen it, according to court filings by the state. The Florida Division of Emergency Management will lose most of the value of the $218 million it has invested in making the airport suitable for a detention center, a state official said in court papers. Built in just a few days, the facility consists of chain link cages surrounding large white tents filled with rows of bunk beds. An Associated Press analysis of publicly available state spending data showed that Florida has signed at least $405 million in vendor contracts to build and operate the facility.
You're such a fantastic moron.
Which officials had initially estimated would cost $450 million a year to run. A previous AP review found that as of late July, the state had already allocated at least $245 million to run the site, which opened July 1st. It's also facing several legal challenges, including the one that U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams ruled on late Wednesday. She denied requests to pause her order to wind down operations after agreeing last week with environmental groups and the Miccosukee tribe that the state and federal defendants didn't follow federal law requiring an environmental review for the detention center in the middle of sensitive wetlands. The Miami judge said the number of detainees was already dwindling and that the federal government's immigration enforcement goals will not be thwarted by a pause in operations. That's despite Homeland Security lawyers saying the judge's order would disrupt that enforcement. Okay, so they're giving away the game here.
When you fuck a stranger in the ass.
Exactly. So they're really giving away the game here because if you remember, we've covered this extensively, just about every development throughout this. What the government argued in response to the lawsuit, saying that this was in violation of federal environmental regulations, the government actually argued that because this was a state-run operation, it was not subject to federal environmental regulations, which I'm no lawyer. That seems like a stupid argument on its face because I always understood that federal law supersedes
exactly.
So to me, that wouldn't even be an argument in the first place. But okay, taking that for what it means, here they're arguing the exact opposite of what they argued in court, which is that interference with this state operation would disrupt federal policy. So they're basically nullifying the argument that they made in court. I guess now that the trial's over and they lost, they figure they can say that part out loud in a desperate attempt to try and save some kind of face, maybe recoup some of these expenses, but does not seem to be working. When asked, the Department of Homeland Security wouldn't say how many detainees remained and how many had been moved out since the judge's temporary injunction last week. DHS is complying with this order and moving detainees to other facilities, the department said in Thursday in an emailed statement. That's right. So Dad Swain Sadai says Alligator Alcatraz is closing down after only 2 months. Why? Because it was a stupid idea to open it in the first place. Florida deserves a $218 million loss for opening that mess at all. Yeah, I agree with that. And this video has been making the rounds today with multiple people making this observation about a Japanese high-speed rail line here. Damn, this was cheaper than the now defunct Alligator Alcatraz. That's right. That's right. So this is Japan's new high-speed rail that came with a $70 million price tag.
さあ、音が近づいてきた。今見えた。一瞬見えてきた。
You can have that. You can get from New York to Chicago in a couple hours using that kind of high-speed rail, or we can build half-assed immigrant jails in alligator swamps to torture brown people. This is why the state of the country is a reflection of the priorities of the country. That was $70 million. That was built for a third of the loss that the state is taking on Alligator Alcatraz. So that shows you what our
and they made
are.
Godzilla -1 for like $575.
That's right. Think of how many Godzilla -1s we could make for that. So not only does this just show the priorities of the country, but it just also shows the hollowness of all of this deficit hawk talk out of these, sort of hard right conservative politicians who are, so careful about where they spend their money. They have Doge rifle through the treasury to save a nickel here and a dime there. Thought nothing of building this facility, sinking hundreds of millions of state dollars into it, knowing there was a pretty good chance it would get shut down. I mean, they had to know that this would be challenged in court, and they had to know that if they were skirting these environmental regulations, that it was only a matter of time, and probably a very short matter of time, before a judge struck it down and they had to cancel it and empty it out. Did they think about that for a second before committing all of that money that now they're not going to get back? No, because, hey, the chuds will love this. They'll love, hey, what an idea this is. Let's put the immigrants out near the alligators. That'll be fun. That'll soften the blow of a 12-day war with Iran. That'll soften the blow of letting Epstein walk. Yeah, let's do it. That'll be great. With not a care in the world. Forget about the immigrants. We know they don't care about the immigrants at all. Not a care in the world for the price tag and for the loss that the state is going to incur when the inevitable happens. And thankfully, it happens sooner than later, and Alligator Alcatraz is in the process of emptying out.
Yeah, quite a few things that they're doing that are now getting struck down in court were very obvious to anyone. Like, you didn't have to be a legal professional to know we have a posse comitatus act. You can't just send the military into American cities. And that was breaking today. We just had a court rule that it was illegal sending the troops to Los Angeles. And I would assume that's going to be followed ultimately with a ruling on what they're doing in DC.
And Chicago, they're getting ready for that.
And
now.
Chicago, you cannot, and they're talking about doing it in New York too. You cannot just go ahead with absolutely no review and build a detention center in a swamp. And when you look at the genesis of this, and you look at the freaks responsible, you look at putting Ron DeSantis over there, and Trump and Benny in the closet pumping it up. You know, the genesis was a back of a napkin conversation. Right. One of these psychopathic assholes called the other and said, hang on. I've got it. You know those old runways out in the swamp?
Yeah.
Let's put the immigrants there. You know what we could do? We could make T-shirts.
Right.
We could make hats. They'll love it. And that'll offset the cost. We'll sell the hats. We'll sell the merch. That's how this happened. I think it's very hard for people to imagine that people at this level of authority are this freakish, incompetent, just it's hard for people to imagine losers at this level of government, but that's what these people really are. They thought it was going to be a great way to gin up the chuds, which is all they used it for, bringing in these influencers to show them. And they didn't think through the consequences at all. And these same people who are running around telling you that the government has to live within its means, holding the country by the ankles and shaking out the loose change. We can't have these deficits. They just passed a bill that increases the deficits by $5 trillion. They don't care about any of that.
No.
This is what they are throwing you. This is the bread and circuses they're throwing you to distract you from the looting. And the kind of people who watch Benny in the closet, for whom that appeals, except not the ones who meet him at the glory hole. I mean, the general audience for Benny in the closet. This is what they're giving you in exchange for the life that they stole from you. These people have spent decades destroying your town, destroying your prospects, destroying your health care. And what they're giving you in exchange is rage bait and a fake sense of belonging to some kind of group that you're never actually going to meet, that you're only going to encounter this way online on your phone. It's a very pale substitute for the life they stole from you. And they have to give you things like this so that you don't come for them.
Yeah, well, what was that
about you not coming for them?
Yeah, what was that green energy company, Solyndra? Some kind of green energy company that Obama gave $500 million to, and it ended up shuttering or something. And that was the scandal of the century on Fox News. They got like 6 months of airtime out of that. Here you have the vendor contracts alone were $400 million.
Right.
$400 million for a place that was open for what? 60 days in the end, but July, August, September, whatever it is. Yeah, about 60 days, about 2 months worth of stuff. What? That wasn't a negligent waste of taxpayer money. Of course it was. And it was completely foreseeable. It's completely foreseeable. So karma caught up with Florida today.
All of this is now today, the bond yields are going through the roof in anticipation that the government might have to pay back everyone who paid those tariffs because they were never legal. It was always obvious they were not legal. If you could just do that, why didn't anyone just do it before?
Right. Yeah. Yep. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be a story worth following up on for sure. Hillary Hitton says, "Hey, dirtbags, I got in the car, turned on radio. Against better judgment, switched to NPR. No. Within 20 seconds, hear about Israel's campaign and Russians' assault. Truth is still searching for boots." Thanks, Hillary Hitton. Nocturnal Humans, and since you have so much recorded for the documentary, do you think you could make an extended series after? Maybe try to get something on Netflix or something with everything you recorded. It is something we are thinking about. I thought about this as a documentary series, which is certainly possible. I mean, the most emotionally impactful thing is to tell a story from beginning to end in one seating, I think. We might have multiple. We don't know. That's the thing. It's so hard to say. I mean, the trial itself, I wasn't planning on spending much time on, but the chairman went off for a half hour on that. Not to say we'll use all of it, but I'm listening through this thinking there's not much I would cut here. This is all pretty good, which is a good problem to have. So we will see. We will see how that
I mean, ultimately, I would imagine as part of the film release, we'll release the total interviews as kind of a special archive.
Sorry, we will figure out a way to get as much of the stuff out there as we can. Obviously, there are situations when it comes to distribution. If you end up entering an arrangement with a major distributor like that, they are going to have some say in what bonus material comes out, and that'll have to be negotiated if and when it comes to that. Again, that's putting the cart way before the horse. To have these conversations is all speculative at this point. Because there's no way.
They give us a hard time, man. We're gonna send a hooroo over there.
Yeah, right, exactly. A rally. There's no way to really know. But yeah, I mean, we will certainly get as much of the material out as possible. Our goal is to get almost all of it out in some way, shape, or form. And the idea of a series does seem appealing in the sense that it allows us to spend a lot of time on each of these things. So we will see. We have to first get the footage organized. That's the one that's first. And that's going to take a while because there's a ton of stuff and it's all very big file sizes. So the process of archiving it and sorting it and seeing what we have, that in alone is going to take probably about a month. This
microphone keeps wanting to swing. Hang on.
All right. It's a swinging microphone. All right. Danny M.
The screw got loose.
Since you all love emos so much, good news. They deliver frozen anywhere. If you don't want to spend the money, just mix provolone and Swiss cheese. Boom. Bravo.
I mean, you know what? That could be viral if we have it shipped to New York and then just offer samples to New Yorkers.
On the street.
Reaction.
The taste of St. Louis. Here, have some. Have some. See how you like it.
They have their own cheese. Even.
Yeah. It actually, I mean, you say mix provolone and Swiss. It actually tastes kind of like Russ said, like a Gouda. There's like a smoky quality to it.
Yeah.
Which I don't love for pizza. I'm not a huge Gouda guy anyway. It's fine, but it's not something I would seek out.
It's good. Well, it's like the way I describe Vegemite to people who've never had it. It's like caviar if caviar was the worst thing you ever tasted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. It's like Gouda if Gouda were awful.
We're shitty. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's move right on along. Another post Labor Day kind of fun one.
All right. The box office has not turned out to be what Hollywood had hoped. Now that summer is over, they're counting the receipts and they're getting real nervous. This article has been making the rounds. Summer box office clobbered by kryptonite. Domestic revenue barely matches last year. Whatever happened to the mantra, survive until 25? The go-to refrain for theater owners and Hollywood executives trying to remain optimistic when the box office kept slumping last year, with revenue lagging well behind pre-pandemic levels. Perhaps the mantra disappeared this summer when it became clear that not even the likes of Superman or even bigger and scarier dinosaurs could save the day. As the summer season wraps on September 1st, Hollywood is facing the worst case scenario. May to Labor Day ticket sales in North America barely matched the $3.67 billion collected in 2024, even if the deficit was only $7 million. Piling it on, Universal and Amblin's re-release of Steven Spielberg's 50-year-old Jaws beat two new studio films domestically over Labor Day. So here you see the headline that just dropped today. Weapons is still number one, or I think it became number one again, which was a very good movie. But that's a weird movie to be number one on Labor Day weekend with all of these tentpole movies out. I mean, that's kind of like a small horror movie. It's good. It's good. I mean, I'm glad to see a smart horror movie at number one, but it definitely indicates the industry is changing.
Yeah, and it's been out for a while.
It's been out for a few weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
And Jaws was number two. It beat out Darren Aronofsky's new movie open this weekend in third behind 50-year-old Jaws.
Spielberg, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah. Honestly, I mean, we've been a little busy. Yeah, like I would go see Jaws at a movie theater. There's a novelty factor to that. It also says a lot that a 50-year-old movie it outperformed, and now they're re-releasing Back to the Future in theaters in IMAX. I think you're going to start to see this. Like, if Hollywood sees they can make money off these old movies because nobody likes the new stuff, they're going to start doing this. They're going to start repackaging it until the novelty wears off.
That'd be fun. Back to the Future is one of my favorites. That's an amazing movie. Although it's funny, there's a plot hole at the end of Back to the Future that's just so funny in retrospect. He's like, he goes back in time. He has to go back to the future to save the doc, right? He has to warn the doc that the terrorists are going to shoot him. So he's like, I got to get there. I got to get there on time. Wait a minute. I'm in a time machine. I can have all the time I want. 10 minutes ought to do it. Like, you had all the time you needed. You gave yourself 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Could have given yourself half a day.
Why not go back 6 months?
Go the day before, get a hotel, chill out, relax. Yeah, I got all the time I want. Yeah, 10 minutes. That ought to be enough.
Well, I mean, it's pretty funny for a man who moved heaven and earth to get home 36 hours earlier to make this argument. Because if there's anyone with a time machine who would limit it to 10 minutes, it would be Keaton Weiss.
Yeah, well, yeah, 10 minutes will work. Yeah.
All had assumed this year's summer lineup would have the strength to equal or surpass the $4.9 billion grossed in summer 2023. But it isn't to be, leaving studio execs and exhibitors in a state of shock as they wrestle with how to operate in a new world order where moviegoing might never return to pre-COVID levels. It won't. One studio that's still smiling is Warner Brothers, which has had a dazzling winning streak. They used the wrong word there. Yeah, they're really exaggerating. As I predicted a while back, I didn't think Superman would bomb. I thought it was going to underperform, and it did indeed underperform. I mean, that's just the way things have been trending with Hollywood and with that genre in general. I think Minecraft was theirs, and I think also Weapons is theirs. So yeah, they're doing better than others, but even they're not doing great. Quote, I'm very, very nervous for the future, says one top studio executive. There are all these studios and companies making movies. I don't think there is enough of an audience for them. That is not a sentiment theater owners or many other studios share. They think the solution is more product delivered to their big screens. Quote, I don't think the studio system will fill the gap that started from the pandemic, says the founder and CEO of Just Watch. It's not as mass a market anymore. It's about an even smaller group of people going to the movies more often. So there's a lot more streaming and watching at home. That's part of it. Before the pandemic, a studio could rely on the foreign box office to make up for any lost ground stateside. China alone could pony up 100 to 200 million, if not more, in receipts. These days, a Western title is considered a hit if it earns 50 million at the Chinese box office. Studio insiders say a raft of other markets in Asia have soured on U.S. movies as local content flourishes. That includes South Korea and markets across Southeast Asia. One startling example, Hollywood titles used to make up 50% of the box office revenue in Vietnam. Now it's just 14%. The downturn has hurt superhero picks in particular, explaining the lackluster offshore performance of Marvel's Fantastic Four First Steps and DC Studios' Superman. In 2024, 6 of the top 10 highest grossing studio movies earned 60% or more of their total earnings from the foreign box office. This year so far, that number is 3 out of the top 10. That's a far cry from pre-pandemic 2019, when 8 of the top 10 studio films hit that threshold. Superman films have always been a tough proposition because of the comic book character's pro-American legacy. But even Man of Steel earned nearly 57% of its $670 million global haul from the foreign box office. This summer's Superman, a mere 43%. Okay, so we have a little more, but just to pause for a second. You have a lot of things going on that are creating a perfect storm for Hollywood that indeed they are the industry as it existed is never coming back. Now, one of the most obvious things is you're seeing a shift in the form of entertainment people take in that you probably haven't seen any equivalent to since the invention of television. When they invented movies, that was bad for live theater. And when they invented television, that was bad for movies. Now, we still have theater, we still have movies, but they never got back the central place in the culture that they did relative to the new mediums that displaced them. People watch a lot more TV than movies, and a lot more movies than theater, and so on. The industry will continue to exist, just like the film and the theater industry continue to exist. It's going to be much smaller. Now, it's partly people taking in things like YouTube and so on. Something Justine Bateman said in a very interesting article is something else is going to be invented that we don't even know what it is yet that's going to replace this. You know, I went to the St. Louis Art Museum the other night. And Friday nights, they have kind of a big event thing where they have different things you can experiment with. So they had a VR thing where you could try this VR. So I signed up for it. I did it. And it was you were on a space station. Yo, like that. A lot of you have probably tried it. I've tried VR, but never VR that good. Yeah, it really tricked my whole body into thinking that I was literally in danger. Like it was so immersive that it felt like I was really there. It is, I'm surprised it hasn't really happened yet, but it's only a matter of time before filmmakers are going to experiment with VR. I would imagine it hasn't happened yet because of the expense. It's probably exorbitant to try to film a whole movie that way. But you could one day, I saw artist renderings of that back in the 80s of people sitting there in what they conceived of as VR helmets in a collective theater. Like you're going to see completely different forms of entertainment that don't even exist yet. So this industry, yeah, it is a dying industry in terms of the form that it existed in previously. Now, what the nerd channels will tend to focus on is what Gary gets into here. Hollywood produces complete shit. Why aren't men showing up? Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. That's part of it. It is kind of interesting. I do think part of what happened with content is it used to be very rich upper class people considered being a performer very gauche, right? That's something you leave to the lower classes. You don't go perform for a crowd, right? And there were some exceptions. There was always the rich girl who ran off to join the circus, but for the most part, people who wound up in entertainment came from the people, so they were sensitive to the people's tastes. You go and you look at the backstories of a lot of these old Hollywood directors. A lot of them came from the Lower East Side. They came from the slums. Even if you go all the way to George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, they were middle class. They were from middle class suburbs, so they were tuned into that. And if you look at their movies, it very much is geared to the taste of people from that kind of background, which when we still had a middle class, was a huge audience for things like E.T. that would find a neighborhood like that relatable and something they identified with. What happened, I think, is, wealthy, high status people are attracted to high status gigs. And as being a media celebrity, a movie star, a filmmaker became the coolest thing to be, they wanted to be that too. And they used their money and their connections to infiltrate it and to bring their out of touch sensibility and tastes to entertainment. And I think that's a big part of why the kind of content they're making today has probably never been as out of touch with popular taste as it is. I think that's how that happened. I think people who in the past, in the early days of the industry, never would have gone into that industry, certainly not en masse, wound up taking it over and ruining it because they don't understand how to create for large populations. They think they can dictate the taste of their class. But there's another. Do you want to say anything before I go on to that?
No, it's okay.
Okay, so this, in terms of international box office, we've been talking a lot about how, hey, a lot of America's power was always soft power. You look at these movies. I always think of The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy. It came out when I was a teenager. And I remember it, I think, because I bought it. I bought the message where he's sitting with the old Asian wise man. This is how you absorb all this propaganda, right? It's programmed into everything in the culture. And he says, oh, you Americans, so much power and so little idea what to do with it. And it's selling an idea of America, but you have to remember that idea was not just sold to Americans, maybe not even principally to Americans. It was sold to the world. This idea of America as this place of idealism, and when we do things wrong, it's by accident, and it's the land of opportunity, and everyone has a shot here. People bought that around the world. I mean, you could see it in the numbers. If you look at the polling on America throughout most of my life, it was overwhelmingly positive in most countries around the world. The fact that in Vietnam, a country where we launched a genocidal war, our films were the dominant films in their cinema until relatively recently, tells you how effective that American soft power was. As the American brand becomes increasingly toxic around the world, so are all of our exports, including our cultural exports. I think it's going to extend further than that. I think nobody's going to want to own American anything. Nobody's going to want to be seen in an American car. No one's going to want to be seen in American clothing brands. That's where I think we're going. And this is the canary in the coal mine, because it's the most responsive to an immediate social shift like that. People already have certain cars that they're invested in, but box office, that's very responsive to a shift in public mood. And I think this is the leading edge of something you're going to see in a lot of other areas. So this is from Pew. Ratings of the U.S. have basically collapsed. I mean, you can see all the down arrows in 1 year, from 2024 to 2025, 32 points in Mexico from 61 to 29. Sweden, 47 to 19. Poland, we're still above water, but even there, 77 down to 55. The only places we're up are Israel, Turkey, and Nigeria. Every place else in this poll, our public stature has collapsed, and whose stature is rising. China this is from Ipsos. China is now seen as a more positive influence than the U.S. It's the first time this has been the case during the 10 years we've tracked this question. Across the 29 countries covered, an average of 49% say China will have a positive effect on world affairs, up 10 points from 6 months ago. Israel and Iran remain the countries least likely to be seen as having a positive influence on the international arena. Iran's score has, however, improved over the last 6 months, as have those of China, Pakistan, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. So largely a basket of countries that are seen as being antagonistic to the United States, as you would expect, are having their popularity improve. And when you look at those Vietnam numbers, where it's gone from 50% to 14% American movies, well, whose movies do you think are filling that gap? I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think they have an enormous film industry in Vietnam to fill that. I would imagine a lot of those films are coming from China and maybe South Korea, which also has a large enough film industry to supplant the United States supply. This is a canary in the coal mine to what you are going to see much more broadly. Tariffs or no tariffs, people around the world are going to stop buying American. Something that Trump and fascists generally never seem to understand is how important it is for people to think well of you, how much power you gain from people having a good opinion. Every problem for them is a nail that they want to approach with a hammer. And the world, I think, is responding partly by no longer consuming our media.
Well, yeah, just like tourism is a canary in the coal mine, entertainment, these things are
Sure.
always like leading
Right.
indicators,
Right.
for sure, in terms of like a global reputation, because they're the most immediately responsive to direct in the moment
Exactly.
feedback.
Exactly.
Right. In terms of like, tickets, I mean, I imagine private equity, real estate driving inflation is another one. I mean, what is a ticket now in New York City to go see a movie?
I mean, it's a lot. It's like $20.
Okay. That's
Go to a
actually less
movie.
than I thought it would be, because when I left the city, it was like 17. So I would think if inflation kept up, it would go even higher. But I guess there's a ceiling on like how much they can charge. Like you can't charge people $30 to go see a movie, right? They just won't pay that.
Well, but hey, I can see it because I've been in Manhattan pretty much forever, like since I got out of college with a couple of breaks. When I would go to the movies in the 90s, even on a weekday, I always had to book it in advance in Manhattan because it would sell out,
Yep.
or you would
People
get a
would go
terrible
all the
seat.
time. Yeah.
Now I can go on a weekend and not reserve it, and the theater is like half empty.
Yeah. There's got to be a noticeable difference there, because you're right. The movies theaters in New York were always busy, always. Even when I lived there, they were always busy. Yeah, there's always half a house at least.
Yep.
Even to see like a matinee on a weekday, whatever, it would be half a house. Yeah. So yeah, that is definitely a marked difference for sure. All right, Laura Kaminsky, thanks for the $5. Says, have you looked into setting up a Means TV channel? Abby Martin and Second Thought are there. It's a great platform exclusively for socialist content. I have not. I didn't know you could. I didn't know. I mean, is that like an invite only thing? I know that's the way Rockfin used to be. You had to be like invited to set up shop there. Be fun. I mean, that would be cool if we could. I don't know if they would have us or what the process is, but might look into that. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. It's good to know they're still alive and kicking over there. That's good. I Am the Owl says, as I logged into Rumble today, on their homepage, they showed the currently live episode of The Quartering. Russ, I BS you not. The title of the episode is literally "Are All Women Terrible?" Too funny. That was the Quartering. that was the live stream title. That's funny. Oh boy. Vito.
Except for Sydney Sweeney, wasn't the subtitle?
Yeah. Are all women terrible except the ones with good genes? Vito P says, can't imagine reconstituting Prowl from Frozen. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that. Virtuoso says, time traveling Keaton doesn't want to go to the 70s to see Reggie Jackson hit 3 homers in a World Series game. He wants to go back to 7 a.m. where he slept past the alarm to get his kids ready for school. Yeah, this is their last day home, actually. They start
is it?
tomorrow. Yeah, so they will be gone during showtime, actually, for most of the pretty much all of the shows over the fall, because Sunday is night shows, so they're sleeping, And Tuesday, Thursday, they'll be at school. So
there you go.
The last time sharing a house with them during showtime for a while. Yes, but they do have to get ready early. They got to arrive between 7:30 and 8. Which is, I remember in junior high, I used to have to get the bus at like 10 to 7. It was brutal. Junior high was the worst schedule. All right. Let's see here where we got Abiding says first MTG, then Anna Kasparian and DNC Barbie Emma Vigeland. Now I'm simpatico with Taylor Lorenz. When do we get to agreeing with The View? Someone can snuff me out in my sleep. Thank you, Abiding. Appreciate that very much. All right. Let's move right on along. Okay, so folks, this is a story that keeps getting more and more fun. It keeps getting more and more fun. At first, I was like, should we do this? I probably should, but I don't really want to. And I'm glad we chose to do it because from the time we chose to do it and airtime, it's gotten a lot crazier and a lot funnier. So Owen Shroyer, who's been a longtime staple at InfoWars, has resigned. And this broke last night. Owen Shroyer has resigned from InfoWars, alleging Alex Jones was pressuring him to back off on criticism of Trump and be less of a pessimist. That's right. That's the AF Post's categorization of this. So we'll go back. I mean, this really kind of started with the Iran strikes. So here's June 12th of this year. Owen Shroyer tweeting out, war with Iran would mark the end of MAGA. All of the patriots who have been with Trump since 2015 will be disenfranchised, and all of the grifters and foreign agents who were anti-Trump then will celebrate. It will be a devastating morale blow to American patriots politically. Owen Shroyer here on July following the spiking of the Epstein files. Do you think it's a coincidence the Epstein files stopped existing the day before Netanyahu lands in D.C. to meet with Trump? That's called an asset out of containment in the business. Owen Shroyer, the Anon accounts who co-opted MAGA are now telling you MAGA never cared about Epstein, responding to one of Insurrection Barbie's cope tweets about the spiking of the Epstein files. We're watching people on X cover up for Jeffrey Epstein in real time. This has to be one of the most disgusting, despicable things I've ever seen. Selling out for politics is one thing. Selling out for pedos is another. Inexcusable, unacceptable, unforgivable.
But I'm sure he would agree there's considerable overlap between those categories.
Yes, I think so. And even until yesterday, here he is at the Putin, Xi, and Modi summit. Trump could have and should have been a part of this for a better America and a better world. But he decided to ride with Netanyahu instead. Sad. So, yeah, he has been kind of pessimistic and kind of down on Trump. And as he'll explain in the next video we play, things kind of reached a bit of a tipping point over the past week. So here is a clip from before Owen walked off InfoWars on August 28th. So here he is doing a segment in response to the Minneapolis shooting, which I guess every time InfoWars covers a shooting, the Alex Jones must be holding his breath and clutching his wallet from now on. So maybe things got a little tense in the studio during this segment, and you could see a very awkward moment where Owen is in the middle of his monologue, sound cuts out, Fox News B-roll is on the screen, and then a few seconds later, he simply says, go to a break, and leaves. So let's take a look at this.
You had this all over Fox News last night. I pulled one clip. There were a ton. No, this is not left-wing media. This is not liberal media. Fox News, clip 6.
Have had a gun. I know very staunch Second Amendment advocates who totally agree with red flag laws. Crazy people should not have guns, period, end of story. Your right to a gun is not universal, just like even the First Amendment, are literally the foundation of our nation's Constitution. It's not sacrosanct. There are limits on it. And if you trip a red flag law, you don't get the gun, period, end of story. And that's something that also needs to be muscularized. And I say that as a believer in the Second Amendment.
All right. Guys, just go to a break or something. Just go to a break.
So something happened there where his toes were stepped on. And he leaves. More silence. More silence. And then, wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. More silence. Wait for it.
On promoting spike protein detoxes that saved so many people and done all this. If I were like, okay, all right, he's out of here. All right, let's go to the spike protein detox ad. Here we go, and go. Come in.
That's how fast it takes for a guy to get whacked.
Yeah, exactly. So, shout out to these X accounts who find these videos because, InfoWars is banned on YouTube. It's not easy to seek this stuff out. So I wish we had the next part on video, but apparently when they cut back in, Alex had made up a reason for Owen having walked off the set, which Owen Shroyer gets into a little bit in this video here, where he starts explaining his sudden departure from the InfoWars network.
Taking a lot more time off. Specifically, you may have noticed how on Thursday, I walked off the show mid-show. It was about an hour into the show. And just so you understand what happened, and if you watched the InfoWars War Room, you've seen this before, so it's not like it's anything new, but Alex was disrupting the show, and he wanted me to cover something, and he wanted me to get a guest on. I'm in the middle of the show while it's going on, as you see so many times, and it just didn't go well. I kind of just reached my point of no return, and so I just walked off the studio. Now, I will say it was a little upsetting to me that he went on and said that I had a family emergency. I did not have a family emergency. There was no family emergency. I didn't appreciate people reaching out to me thinking that something bad had happened, including my own parents. So there was no family emergency.
Also, yeah, it's a family emergency. You had to leave. Imagine getting a call from your own mother. What happened? Is everything okay? Yeah, no, he just lied and said it was a family emergency because he tried to step all over my segment, so I quit. He said it's a family emergency.
Walked off the show. I've never done that before in my life. And that's not how I operate. That's not who I am. But I felt powerless in that moment, and the only power I had was just to walk off, because I couldn't do another thing like it was 2 or 3 weeks ago when I came back and did that comedy bit. I couldn't do another thing where I just say, oh, go to rebroadcast. It was whatever. So no, I walked off the show on Thursday. Now, my intention was to go back this week, and I made that intention perfectly clear to Alex an hour ago. Now, I wanted to meet with Alex in the office tomorrow, and I told him that. I told him that last week after I left the studio. He texted me, and I said, Alex, let's talk next week. I said, I don't want to talk about it now. I'm done for the week. Let's talk next week. We communicated a little over the weekend, and then today I said, let's meet. Let's have a meeting tomorrow before your show, whenever you want. Let's meet tomorrow before your show, and maybe we can talk this out, work it out. And he said, no, let's just talk now. And so he called me. Now, my intentions, and I told him this, I wanted to go in this week. I wanted to go in tomorrow. And I wanted to finish this week, and I wanted to finish positively at InfoWars. And, I even said if he wanted me to kind of stick around like a satellite to go down with the ship, that I'd be willing to play some sort of a satellite role to go down with the ship and be a part of that and continue, wearing the name on the front of the jersey for at least some semblance while it's still ongoing. And he didn't express any interest in that. And so he told me that he didn't need me and good luck. And that was that.
All right. That was that. So that was after, like I said, there was clearly some sort of interruption in a recent broadcast. And to give you an idea of what he's talking about here, this is a different broadcast. Shout out to Hotspot for finding this, because this is a hilarious clip. You can kind of see things going south between Alex and Owen in this video here. So Alex Jones interrupts an interview between Nick Fuentes and Owen Shroyer. So Owen is interviewing Nick Fuentes, and Alex Jones kind of comes onto the set to kind of troll, jokingly, that they shouldn't be saying the things that they're saying, right? Mm-hmm. And he disguises it as kind of fucking around, but you could tell Owen knows what he's really up to and is not amused by this at all. So let's take a look. This is funny stuff.
Thing about college, because I think it's hold on a second.
I just got a call from Tel Aviv. It's got the call. Stop talking about Israel right now.
Oh, it was straight out of Tel Aviv, huh?
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu, my boss.
Are you sure it wasn't Jerusalem?
Stop right now.
Or Washington, D.C.?
I'm ordering you
Or
he's fuming mad. I mean, I don't blame him. Like, there's no reason you would barge onto the set during an interview like this unless it was to shut down what they were saying.
Yep.
Like, there's no reason for that. You're obviously.
I mean,
yeah, he's not going to go on there and ream them. He has to disguise it as, hey, I'm fucking around, I'm joking around. But it's pretty obvious what he's doing. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, he got a call from Elon.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, who saved his ass? Who bailed him out? He can't have a platform on YouTube pretty much anywhere else. Elon, I'm sure, is paying him a certain amount of money. He offers that deal to creators who are ideologically aligned with what he's into, who have enough viewers. So yeah, man, like that's his lifeline. How much money does he owe? 800 trillion.
Yeah, something crazy. Exactly. Yeah, something insane.
That's his living. And I mentioned to you, I didn't really have time to dig into it as much as I'd want to if I'm going to make a case like that. But yesterday, when we were looking at stories to do on X, UK top trending thing, 444,000 posts. I'm like, what happened in the UK? And I'm looking, and it's just the usual shit that's always there in the background. The Sharia law in the UK and grooming gangs. It was just the usual stuff. There wasn't anything new that had happened. The only thing I could find that happened was Lammy had argued for a two-state solution. That is the only significant news coming out of the UK at that time that I could find. So why the fuck is X's algorithm manipulating the background noise about, the UK has fallen to that level at the same exact time? Elon works for Israel and Alex works for Elon.
Yeah, he definitely wanted to shut this down, and that could definitely be why.
Stop talking about Israel right now.
Oh, it was straight out of Tel Aviv, huh?
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu, my boss.
Are you sure it wasn't Jerusalem?
Stop right now.
Or Washington, D.C.?
I'm ordering you.
Or Trump Gaza International?
I'm in there every day telling Owen. I have to restrain him.
Did you, are you going to take the trip, Alex? You want to go touch the wall?
I would love to go to Egypt. I'd love to go to Israel.
I could arrange that for you.
I want to go see the Great Wall of China. I mean, I'm going to work with Xi Jinping. Yeah, no, I would love to go see Golgotha where Christ was crucified. I'd love to do all that.
Would you kiss the wall? Like Vance?
Probably to troll people, yeah.
That'd be a good troll. That'd be a pretty good troll.
I would do the opposite thing. I would refuse to touch the wall to troll people.
No, listen, that's a Titus destroyed that in 70 AD. So you can't hate those people. And we say we're not Judeo-Christian. I know that. You're a Christian. But the point is, it does Abrahamic religion and all that. We can't, you even hate the Jews of 2,000 years ago. My point is, Netanyahu.
Are we having a history discussion now? Or do we have to do this now?
It's because we disagree with a bunch of the bad stuff Israel does. We don't have to hate people.
You can tell, just look at Owen's face. You can tell how he has just had it with it. I mean, I don't blame. Like this is terrible. Like you can't work like this. I mean, I've been in the game for a much shorter time than him, but I can tell you the amount of preparation it takes to do this right, and then the amount of focus it takes in the moment to deliver it right. You can't have the guy barging into the set in the middle of the interview, clearly trying to derail it. He's masking this as a big kind of joke at a troll. Oh yeah, no, I would go to the wall and kiss it as a troll. No, you're saying for the camera you would go kiss the wall. And do we have to go this hard at Israel in this way right now? I got a call from Tel Aviv saying, I mean, it's pretty obvious what he's doing.
What's wrong with the solidarity? J.D. Vance also goes to the Catholic
What's
Church.
What's wrong with the solidarity?
You go say hi.
So what's wrong with the solidarity? What's wrong with J.D. Vance going there and touching a wall? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Solidarity. J.D. Vance also goes to the Catholic Church. He's Catholic. You go say hi to the Pope or whatever. My point is, you think somebody's bad if they go do this?
Well, Vance visits the Pope. What happens? Pope dies.
Oh, you think he killed him?
He visits India. Nuclear war is about to break out. He dropped the trophy. He broke the trophy.
Is he the Antichrist?
Isn't it just funny, though, how nobody's talking about that Pakistan-India situation? It's like there was a huge shootout at the border.
Yeah.
They didn't even talk about it.
They're threatening nuclear war with each other.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for years, but it's like,
wait a minute, we're not. How do we tie that into Israel? How do we blame Israel?
They're working with India.
It's true.
That is true, right?
So it's Israel's fault. Okay.
You said it. You said it, not
High
me.
five. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, so
Yeah.
that
But I
gives
wanna
you
get-
a real
Oh,
sense
man.
of like what the working relationship was. Just clearly trying to derail an anti-Israel segment. No ambiguity about that whatsoever, as much as he tries to disguise it as just joking around. So here he is in the same broadcast talking very directly about, in Alex's mind, he had become too pessimistic and too anti-Trump.
and coming into my show and talking about how I'm negative and calling me a pessimist and all this other stuff, which is fine. You work for Alex, you're going to get hit with it a lot. Alex is not easy to work for, and that's fine. That's okay. But okay, he says I'm too negative. He says I'm a pessimist, whatever. I'm too anti-Trump. So I just said, all right, you know what? I'll just take some time off. I'll just disappear. And if Alex thinks I'm too negative, then maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm too negative now. Maybe I'm too much of a pessimist now. Maybe I'm too anti-Trump now. Whatever his issue was when he kept coming in the show, telling me I'm too negative, saying I'm a pessimist on his show, I said, okay, maybe he's right. I'll take some time off. I'll blow off some steam. I'll just get out of the ring for a week. And, maybe I'll come back a little more positive. And maybe there was a level of reality to that. And I think I did come back more positive. But the same issues that I had started up immediately as soon as I came back.
Yeah. So at first, Alex Jones tried to take the high road and keep it classy since, Owen doesn't really go off on Alex Jones in that. He kind of just says, hey, look, working for InfoWars was, the break of a lifetime, and, he'll go my way, he'll go his, and that'll be that. So here's Alex Jones. Owen has wanted to know for a while. He told me he was quitting yesterday afternoon. He told me if I needed him another week, he would do it. And I said, no, it's that simple. I built InfoWars to be a radio talk show on TV. The office is a newsroom, so when big stuff would break, I and others would bring stuff to the show producers. That's as far as me standing over his shoulder went. Okay, clearly not. We just saw a video of you barging in on an interview where the subject was, politicians' loyalty to Israel over America. That's as far as me standing over his shoulder went, except maybe twice a month walking onto the show during the anti-Israel segments. Oh, he didn't write that, did he?
Yeah.
That's what we have always done on all the shows, including mine. I have known Owen for over 9 years and love the guy. That said, when I started to watch what he said last night online, it was sad and I stopped. I wish Owen all the best for his life and the great work he does fighting evil and promoting freedom. I never censored him and agreed with 99% of what I saw him talk about. I only encouraged him to be more positive in general about the fact that humanity has come a long way in the Great Awakening. Really? A long way in a Great Awakening? We're about to be surveilled by Palantir, every single one of us, every second of every day, every facet of our lives. That's a Great Awakening? What was the Great Awakening that we all claim to? That measles is actually good for you? Is that the Great Awakening? Because I got to say, it took a very long and complicated route to that Great Awakening. A whole lot of left turns on the way to finding out measles is actually good. Maybe that's what you mean. Bottom line, he wants to be his own captain, and I think that's great. I am surprised by the censorship claim he is hinting at. But if he thinks he needs to say that to build his show, that will be on him. As for me, I am taking the high road. For the time, should have put an asterisk there, for the time being, and will continue to promote Owen when I see cool stuff he does. Godspeed to Owen. Okay, well, that lasted approximately 12 hours, it seems, because here is, sitting in on InfoWars, unironic fan of the show, who we do plan on inviting on for a talk, maybe at a Q&A or whatever. Here is Rex Jones, son of Alex Jones, whose old screen name, Conor McGregor, was no friend of mine, used to super chat us all the time. And he remains a sincere, legit fan of the show, going back to when we had like 5,000 subs. He's one of the OG fans.
He's been around forever.
Been following us for a while. So here he is in the host chair, and his dad crashes the set again, this time singing a little bit of a different tune on Owen Shroyer.
It's not going to end too well.
I'm here to censor.
Oh, no. He's here. We've
Rex,
crossed the line.
You should launch a new independent show and claim that I censored you for years and get 1 million viewers and betray me. And you're allowed to lie about me any way you want.
You know I love you.
No,
Look, let's reject the let's reject the grabbler.
This is a. I'm using this as a case point. You understand that?
Mm-hmm.
How much have I come in and censored you over the years?
Yeah, not enough, frankly. I say some
we
things that I
miss
shouldn't
you.
be saying.
Have I ever censored you?
Never once. Literally never once.
Hey, if you want to quit and have a publicity stunt and lie about me, I forgive you, okay? I know. I'm just saying I expected. Hey, David Knight did it. Owen's done it. And I tell you, I was taking the high road until I actually started watching it. And it's like Anakin Skywalker's become Darth Vader.
Can we sing a song?
Hey, when I go on the air, I'm letting you have it, Shroyer. You stabbed your brother in this operation in the back, and you're a fucking liar.
Can we sing a song? Can we sing a song?
Keep it classy, Alex. Keep it classy.
Shroyer, you stabbed your brother in this operation in the back, and you're a fucking liar.
Can we sing a song? Can we sing a song? We're gonna
piece of shit. Goes from hey, Godspeed and wish him all the back. You're a fucking liar, fucking backstabbing asshole, piece of shit. Wait till I get on the air. And indeed, he did get on the air soon. And here's what he has to say to Owen Shroyer.
Oh boy.
Are a snake. You are a rat. You are a fraud. You are a backstabber. You are a handbiter. You are a disgrace.
We got to soundboard some of that.
Are a fraud. You are a backstabber. You are a handbiter. You are a disgrace.
Okay, I have to side with Owen on the censorship claim. Like maybe he technically.
Well, we just literally saw him walk into the middle of an interview.
Exactly.
To break up the subject.
Walking into an interview, crashing an interview like that with the very unambiguous intention of shutting down that conversation. Yes, that can be fairly described as censorship. I award full points on that claim. Like that is tantamount to censorship. Just because you don't pull him aside off the air and say, you can't talk about this. No, I'm sorry. Barging onto the set during an interview with a very very high profile guest and shutting it down in that way. Yes, that is a form of censorship. I think that can be fairly described in that way.
Yeah. And look at Jones's body language in that segment and look at the nonsense he's saying. Like Alex Jones is very good at just speaking off the cuff, and he can't figure out how to pretend that he's this truth teller and shut down their conversation. He's just all over the place there. Yeah, well, can we still be friends with that? Well,
I don't hate people. Yeah,
I might touch the wall. I hear it's very sticky because they fucked that wall. That's what I've heard. I've heard they fucked that wall. Going back, you got 2,000-year-old jizz on that wall. You could probably bring Titus back from the dead with that DNA on that wall.
I could sample that wall and sell it as a supplement. Yeah. I could extract the ancient semen from that wall, bottle it up, sell it for $79.99 a droplet. Yeah. No, I mean, there was clearly a form of censorship. And so, yeah, I don't think that claim of Owens was unfair at all. And in case you had any doubt as to what happened to Alex Jones, here he is one day after 9/11 going on a tear against Israel.
Working with Israel to oppress the people of the planet. Israel loves it. That Nazi Sharon has invaded the West Bank. They're slaughtering innocent people. And I'm sick of worshiping Israel. Did you know back in the 1960s they bombed the USS Liberty knowing it was one of our ships? Because it caught the radio chatter of them killing thousands of Palestinian children during that invasion, and they torpedoed it as they begged for hours on the radio, and LBJ sat there in 63 and let them do it. That's in this Baltimore Sun story. I don't support the Palestinians either. They're all hyped up and psychotic.
Right, well, keeping it fair and balanced back in 2001. But that is what Alex Jones thinks of Israel. And I would imagine that is what he still thinks of Israel.
Right.
So what changed? Yep. His position changed. And, the
$1 billion lawsuit.
$1 billion lawsuit. And, even beyond that, I mean, that's, I think, a huge part of it, obviously. But even beyond that, when you hitch your wagon to the star of a politician and they become president and they become powerful, you are forced having to answer for a lot of their shit if you want to maintain that access to power, or if you want to maintain access to the financial support of a lot of the supporters of that leader who you helped propel to power. I firmly believe Alex Jones was indispensable to Trump's victory in 2016. Not so much this time. But in 2016, you had Alex Jones, who had a huge viewership. He was on YouTube. He was somewhat, not mainstream, but he was on YouTube, fully monetized channel and everything, racked up millions and millions of views at a time. For the first time, throw his weight behind a candidate. And so that made a huge difference, not only to the politics of the country, but to Alex Jones, I would have to think. Because now all of a sudden, your viewers are part of this coalition that has, propelled itself to real power, which then broadens your appeal, broadens your viewership, and makes you more reliant on them. And I think that's a lot of what happened here, too, because there's no doubt that he understands what Israel is doing now. I have no doubt in my mind about that. Just look at that clip we just showed. What, he softened on Israel since then? Right. I don't buy that for a second. His position has changed. His imperatives have clearly changed. And so that is now informing his point of view, from downplaying Palantir to saying, well, is it really unforgivable that they go and kiss the wall or whatever? It's pretty obvious stuff. And, Shroyer, who's worked with him for a very long time, Shroyer went to jail for 60 days over some January 6th charge. So he's been a loyal sidekick, if you will, for a long time. Now that the Epstein stuff and the Iran stuff, have piled up, Shroyer has to make a decision. Okay, do I stay with the team or do I go it alone? And it's always the riskier decision. This is what people have to understand. It's always the riskier decision to go out on a limb and be, as what Jones says, a hand biter, right? Because he's not only biting the hand of Alex Jones, he is biting the hand of a lot of viewers because they have been sort of groomed into loyalty to Trump. So when you go out on a limb and you go against the grain and cut against the grain of your own audience, it's always a huge risk. This is why, people used to say about Jimmy all the time that, well, he's doing this stuff to grift for clicks. That's the complete opposite. Well, for a guy like Jimmy to go after, to turn his back on Bernie and AOC, that was a huge risk, a massive risk. Yeah. And I'm sure in the short term, it was very costly because you've curated an audience. I shouldn't say curated because that implies that you're like actively courting them. You have attracted an audience that feels a certain way and has a loyalty not only to you, but by extension, other people who you express sympathy for. When you do a heel turn, that's the riskiest thing you can do in this game. That is the riskiest thing. So what Owen Shroyer's doing now is the riskiest thing he could do. What a guy like Fuentes did, but fuck you, you suck all of a sudden. That's taken a huge chance. And I don't know if Alex Jones is in a position to take that chance because of his debts, right? And because of his compromised position in the media space, right? He needs the views that X gives him. That probably does a lot for advertising, if nothing else, right? Just to get hundreds of thousands of views on a stream when you hawk your shit, that's going to make a big difference in the bottom line. So, yeah, when you get yourself into a position where you're reliant on your audience in that way and reliance on, certain groups of people to keep the lights on for you, it leads to stuff like this. And I think that's what happened here.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, as I laid out, I think that he's totally dependent on Elon in the face of what he owes because of these lawsuits. But it's a very tough position for a guy with his brand to be in, because only the dumbest at this point don't realize what's happened with Alex Jones. Even within the last few months, it was a few months ago that we kind of did a point and laugh thing about they were going to seize the InfoWars and all of that. And we had a lot of Alex Jones fans get angry about it. When we've done stuff like that lately, nothing. You're seeing more and more people say, yeah, Alex Jones is a fake conspiracist. They were even 6 months ago, people were willing to defend him. As the Gaza genocide continues, and as he continues to try to do this dance where he's defending people like Palantir, where he's defending people like Netanyahu
Yeah.
while trying to pretend that he's not. Anybody who's a true blue deep state conspiracist can see what happened to Alex Jones.
Yeah, I think it's fairly obvious, and which is why it's so surprising, but cool that his kid is a fan of the show. So hey, if you're still up to chat,
we're gonna bring him
we'd
on,
love
man.
to-
Maybe we'll give him a show.
Yeah, he can host a show with Owen Shroyer.
There you go.
There you go. That would be fun. That would be something. Hey, that's an idea. All right. We will move right on along here. Chris McElroy, thanks for the $8.99, says, greetings from New Zealand. Thoughts on the likelihood of nuclear war breaking out in the next 6 to 12 months? Well, I certainly hope not, my friend. How is New Zealand situated in the event of a nuclear war geographically? Aren't there certain like bands of the world that are like more vulnerable to fallout?
Yeah, I told you that. Back during the Cold War, when people really used to talk about this stuff, the general understanding was New Zealand, because of the wind currents, was the best place that you could be in a nuclear war.
All right. So then what difference does it make?
Yeah,
to you,
you're
Chris
good.
McElroy? You're good.
Good.
You're good.
You got sheep, which
Yeah, you
means
got
you have
sheep.
sex and meat.
Exactly. That's the benefit of a large sheep population. You never go lonely or hungry.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're covered.
You're covered. Hamhawk says, I got World War III on my phone. Top that, HW. Thank you, Hamhawk. Appreciate that. Truth Seeker says, Peacenik Trump has now surpassed his own record on bombing Somalia. That's right. Anti-war has a story. Hope you cover it. I know Misty covered it on her last show. I got to clip that. 71 times this year, up from 63 in 2019. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Not only that, I think, didn't he have his big press conference this afternoon, or his Oval Office statement? It's his big announcement that they're changing the name from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. What did he say? He was going to say something from the Oval Office today. I'm sure he did it already, but I can't find it now on the phone. It must not have been that important. I see Oval Office. I've been active over the weekend. Well, it's fake news. Okay, nothing here. All right, forget. So sounds sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me.
I forgot to get pillows behind me. That's why I'm so far back.
Oh, okay. So you're not
the whole
propped
show,
up.
I've been like, what's wrong?
What's going on? Something's off. Nujoma says, would never visit U.S. or buy U.S. car except some good shows, DD, JD, and writers. Boyle, the U.S. does not offer anything of interest. Where are you from, Nujoma? Curious. John M. in Minnesota.
Well, apparently you have not been to Emo's Pizza.
Yeah, we got Emos. That's right. We got Emos Pizza. John M. in Minnesota says, perhaps we lost some of that soft power cachet in Vietnam when Trump canceled funds for Agent Orange cleanup earlier this year. Interesting.
I didn't help.
Yeah, I'm sure that did not help. That's for sure. All right, let's move right on along here to the Flotilla. Another big story.
Okay. So the Freedom Flotilla is underway. They have had some weather problems. But as we will see, it looks like that got straightened out. So this has been launching from multiple ports. Here is a march in Genoa. 50,000 came out to march for Palestine. That's one of the launching ports of the flotilla. So let's take a look at some video of that. And Francesca Albanese actually quote tweeted that, as the global Samud flotilla sets sail to Gaza, may Gaza hear this collective cry. Gaza, you are not alone. You have stirred the world from its deep sleep. Amen. So this went viral. This is one of the Italian dock workers warning that if communication is lost with the flotilla, the port workers will immediately block all shipments to Israel, and he actually threatens to block shipments to Europe. I want this to be, here, let me turn this down. I want this to be clear to everyone, really to everyone. Around mid-September, these boats will arrive near the coast of Gaza, close to the critical zone. If we lose contact with our boats, with our comrades, even for just 20 minutes, we will shut down all of Europe. I've written it down so I won't forget it. Together with our union, together with all the dock workers who stand with us, together with the whole city of Genoa, from this region, 13 to 14,000 containers leave every year for Israel. Not a single nail will leave anymore. We will launch an international strike. We will block the roads. We will block the schools. We will block everything. Our young women and men must come back without a scratch. And all this cargo, which belongs to the people and is going to the people, must reach its destination down to the very last box. That is all I have to say. So, very base dock worker there.
Yeah.
This is, I believe he reported it. Okay, this pronunciation is going to be rough. I believe that's a Turkish name. Furkan Gosakara. So many famous people trying to reach the Gaza. Israel will be brutally exposed on social media to literally billions of people. And he got some great footage of the people. This is in Barcelona now, which was, it seems, the main launching point where people are boarding the ships yesterday.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Where are you from? Where are you from?
Basque country. Be careful. Basque country. You know?
Basque country.
Basque country.
From
Spain.
Bilbao, yes.
Thank you
yes.
so much. Gracias. Where are you from, bro? Where are you from? Los Angeles. Los Angeles. Where do you come from?
I am Palestinian.
Palestinian.
But I live in New Zealand. I live in Aotearoa.
You are going to Gaza?
I'm inshallah.
Yeah,
that is the plan.
Yeah.
To open a humanitarian corridor for all the Palestinian people that are calling for us to wake up.
Thank you so much.
They are the heroes. Keep watching them. Keep your eyes on them.
Thank you so much.
All right. You also have a lot of high-profile people going out on this flotilla. It's the largest humanitarian flotilla in history. It's more than 50 boats from at least 44 countries that are going to converge in the Mediterranean on Thursday under this effort. So this is Mandela Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela, speaking to the crowds. He's going to be on the flotilla.
Million people in Gaza are being starved to death. Who is the one that is perpetuating the violence? Who is the one that is a threat, not only to Palestinians, but to you and I, to the entire global community? There is only one threat: apartheid Israel and Netanyahu and his regime.
And this is Irish comedian Tyg Hickey. He was going to go, but he made a rather alarming discovery and decided not to. So here he is.
Great sadness to say that I don't think I'm actually going to be able to take part in the global smooth flotilla. It's been a tough couple of days, to be honest with you, but I was willing to accept the nausea, constant seasickness, people snoring in my room, being away from my kids, ultimately probably conceivably ending up in the custody of the most psychopathic army the world has ever seen. I put up with all that, but I mean, everyone has their limit. Stop the boats.
So just cracking wise there, cracking wise. I'm kidding. He went with the flotilla, just making a little joke about the Union Jack being on one of the boats. So Liam Cunningham, former Hand of the King on Game of Thrones, Irish actor, as you'd expect, a lot of Irish representation. He gave one of the most arresting speeches, playing the singing of a Palestinian little girl who was killed by the IOF forces. So let's take a look at a little of that.
I'd like to introduce you to a young lady, and her name is Fatima, and she's absolutely gorgeous. If you can see her there, and she has a lovely voice, and I'm going to let you listen to a couple of seconds of her singing. Okay, one sec. So Fatima is singing that song because she's making arrangements for her own funeral. She wants that song sung in the event of her death. What sort of a world have we slid into? What sort of a human hole have we found ourselves in when children, beautiful angels like that at 5 or 6 years old, are making their own funeral arrangements? Where does that leave us? How are our children and our grandchildren going to look back at this horrific episode in the existence of our species?
And Greta Thunberg is also on the flotilla once again, in spite of Israeli threats, which we will get into a little bit.
Dozens and dozens of boats came from Palestinians when we were talking with them last time during the Madeleine mission. So we are doing the bare minimum to uphold international law and to do our duty as citizens of the free world. And this is the biggest attempt to break the siege of Gaza ever. And we are mobilizing with people from all over the world. Now we're going to our first stop, which will be in Tunis, where many, many people are waiting to onboard dozens of more boats, and then we will be joined by dozens of more boats from Italy, and then by Greece, and then we will be continuing towards Gaza.
Okay, she is taking particular risk. Israel plans to imprison Greta Thunberg and declare her a terrorist for trying to break the siege and deliver food to Gaza, according to the Telegraph. The Israeli National Security Minister is drafting plans to detain Greta Thunberg and company in terrorist-level conditions and seize their vessels for repurposing as a maritime force for police operations. Now, I forget his name. Is that Kavir?
Yes.
That Kavir? He's the same one who said it shouldn't be illegal to spit on Christians.
Right.
In an interview on Israeli TV.
Well, he's a terrorist himself. I mean, he's been
Of
convicted.
course.
Yeah.
Of course he's a terrorist.
He's been convicted by the Israeli government. Like, that's not just a saying. Like, he's actually been tried. He's a criminal by Israeli standards.
Yeah, yeah, and yet he's a high-ranking cabinet official.
Well,
nonetheless.
Exactly.
Yeah. Most countries, you would say, they're not going to put Greta Thunberg in a torture dungeon. Not Israel. Who's going to hold them accountable? Who's going to hold them to account? The United States. As long as the United States is willing to give them money and weapons, they have impunity. So she's showing a great deal of courage, in particular, because you do get the sense, as sick as the Israelis are, they want to make an example of her. And I think once they've had you in custody, when they release you, it's with the understanding that if you return, they're going to throw the book at you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So this is from the official account of the flotilla. They've set sail after weather delays. The boats are back on track with their mission to break the siege, and their journey continues. The wind is in their sails, and so is our global family. So they released a little bit of video.
I love you, all the people. I love you.
When you're ready, everyone rolling?
So DropSite actually has a reporter on the boat. This is from them. The global Samud Flotilla, the largest civilian mission to break Gaza's siege, launches today with 50 ships from 44 countries, over 50 ships. DropSite editor Alex Colston is on board and will be reporting live as it sails from Barcelona toward Gaza. And this is Claire Daly. Fair play to Greta Thunberg and all on board the Gaza flotilla for carrying the hopes and demands of citizens of the world for an end to Israel's genocide. Western governments, hang your heads in shame and stop enabling Zionism. Long live Palestine, long live Gaza. Now, they did run into some rough weather. This dropped not long before we went on the air. So this is the latest.
So last night was a rough night. We had a much stronger storm than we anticipated, and 4 of our smaller vessels did have to turn back for safety concerns. Everybody is okay, but we wanted to be safe, and so those vessels turned back. The flotilla is continuing. One thing I do want to say is that this is a civilian fleet. So we had to buy these boats, equip these boats over the past 2 months. And so things like this happen when you have to do things like this. Things like this happen when civilians have to do what governments are not willing to do to break this illegal siege and this genocide. If a government wanted to step in, they would have more than the vessel capacity to bring all the aid that is needed to Gaza without risking vessels like we've had to. But governments have failed, and the people have to step up. Everyone is okay, I want to reiterate that, and the flotilla is continuing. We won't be intimidated by weather, we won't be intimidated by threats. Everyone is okay, and we'll get more updates when we can.
That's perfect.
Okay.
We are continuing. I had to add my own thought of the same thing.
All right. And she makes a great point there. You know, I've already seen some of these sick Zionist accounts making fun of them. Oh, look, they just sailed out and went back. Yeah, they went back so they wouldn't die. And then they launched again once the weather passed.
Right.
All right. So this is Greg J. Stoker. I haven't heard of him, but apparently one of these boats is made up of American veterans. So he's been dropping some bangers about the real underlying causes of this conflict and our complicity in it. So there have been 2 videos of him that I found, and they're worth listening to.
A veteran kills himself every 15 minutes in the United States, you know, holdover from a war that we didn't need, had no business being in. And one of the reasons I'm on this flotilla is because a lot of people see, you know, Palestine or what happens in the Middle East, conflicts in the Middle East is just, that's what happens over there with those people. You know, what can I do about it, right? You know, because of the 20 years of the global war on terror, people have been normalized. Like having military engagements in West Asia is just kind of what happens. And how does it affect them? So I'm on this flotilla to use my status as a veteran to say, like, hey, whatever violence we do overseas, whatever forms of repression and colonialism immediately get implemented back in the States. The same technology used to enforce occupation and apartheid through AI targeting programs, spyware, mass drone warfare is coming to is actually already at a local police department near you. So if we accept the premise that there's a fascist takeover happening in Washington, D.C. and extending out through the entire continental United States, it started over here. It started with, the expansion of the police state after 9/11 and the national security state after 9/11, and it's only getting worse. And people need to understand that whatever our government is willing to do to Palestinians, they're willing to do to you. They just can't do it yet.
Yeah, dropping a lot of truth bombs there. And this is why veterans are not represented that way. If you know a fair amount of veterans, that is not unusual. That is not unusual. Very often, veterans are the most based people that you can meet because they've seen it.
Right.
They've seen it firsthand. The born on the 4th of July trajectory is very common, where they went into the military thinking one thing about the country and the military and what our mission abroad is, and coming home with a very different understanding of the reality. But they don't platform people with these views, even though, as I say, in my experience, that's not unusual. That's very common among veterans. I know that they have a very fleshed out, articulated view of what U.S. foreign policy and its imperialistic underpinnings are really about, and what the consequences are to the country. But they're not going to show you that. And that's not a right or left thing. Pete Buttigieg. You're not going to see Pete Buttigieg tell you shit like that. That's how they want to represent a veteran. They want to represent a veteran like, yeah, no, sometimes we make mistakes, but it's tough what we do around the world, and we're proud of all of our service members. And I'm not saying we should be beating up on our service members. I'm just saying people like this are not represented or platformed because they don't want people who have been conditioned to have this enormous respect for service members to hear what a lot of them actually have to say about war. They just want to use them as propaganda puppets. So the only ones you hear from are the ones who are willing to play that role or actually believe those things.
Right. Exactly.
So this is a second video from On the Boat. And this is what he says in his tweet. Israel is an extension of the U.S. empire to wage adventurous wars and destabilize the region into vassal states that will allow Western capitalists to exploit their people and resources. If you're talking about the Zog theory, that's the Zionist occupation government, you have no idea what's going on in this world. So here's what he said from the boat.
Hey y'all, vet boat attached to the global Samud flotilla, just checking in. Last night sucked, but as you can tell, everything's calmed down and no one's banging their head or face planting or throwing up overboard. So that's cool. Morale's high. Look at Phil, super high morale. He's all tuckered out there, bless his heart. And I would just like to take this opportunity to remind everybody that the IOF is a completely incompetent military, and all they can do is not achieve combined arms, but just drop bombs. U.S. bombs provided by the U.S. empire. Because Israel is an extension of the United States empire to destabilize the region and carve it up into vassal states that will allow the capitalist interests to exploit their resources and people. A lot of different interests want this to happen. So this isn't just like the pro-Palestine movement. This is the anti-landlord movement, because Donald Trump's a real estate mogul. Kamala Harris's first speaking event after she lost the election was at the Australian Real Estate Conference. Steve Witkoff, special envoy to the Middle East, real estate developer. This is just what happens under capitalism. And again, activists mobilize against issues like Palestine. But revolutionaries organize against system. The same system that's fucking you over and you can't buy a house is the same system that deems that every Palestinian in Gaza needs to die or be voluntarily migrated. Let's all get on board with that and keep on keeping on. Cheers, y'all. We got like 13 more days. And I think I'm going to get back to my roots and just start talking a lot of shit about the Israeli military. Cheers, y'all.
All right. So again, that's Greg J. Stoker. Give him a follow. Saying some very cool stuff. That is a veteran you're not going to see on Fox News. You're not going to see him on OAN explaining what America is actually doing in the Middle East. And he does make an important point. It's easy to believe that Israel is running us when really, yeah, at the end of the day, they are a client state. I do believe there are certain politicians who are being blackmailed who would not go along with this, who actually have integrity in regards to what they would want to say, but not enough integrity to have whatever pictures they have of them in a seedy hotel come out, so they're going to go along with it. But then when you look at these people like Trump, Witkoff, he makes a great point there. They're real estate people, man. This is a big real estate opportunity for them. We almost covered it today. The Washington Post just published that over the weekend. This Trump Gaza plan just leaked, where they developed this plan for 8 high-tech cities, and they would move the whole population out. Yeah, at the end of the day, this is a business opportunity for them. And what did RFK Jr. say? There are aircraft carrier in the Middle East, right? We want to keep them there to destabilize the region. I used to work with a lot of Turkish guys when I drove a horse and carriage, and my politics were much more MSNBC aligned back then. These guys used to tell me, because this is when Iraq, we were still there and it was chaos. And they said, well, this is what America wanted all along. They don't want that region stable because then people would be able to assert themselves politically. And I thought like a lib is going to think when they hear things like that, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. It's crazy. Now you look at it, it's very, very obvious. And, that's why Stoker makes the point, if you think this is about a Zionist occupational government, you have no idea what's actually going on in the world. This is, in many ways, Israel, and this is a side of it. Zionists never talk about it. Certainly Christian Zionists don't talk about it. In a lot of ways, Israel is another Liberia. It was a place to send Jews so they wouldn't be in the countries where people don't like them. It's a win-win for Western imperialism. You get all the Jews over there, and then you get them to act as your client in a region that has resources that you want to be able to extract. That's the relationship. If there were no oil in that region, we would tell Israel, good luck, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and it likely wouldn't be there in the first place, or had it been established in the first place, it would have been toppled long ago to the great indifference of the Western powers that put it there, assuming we would have put it there if that were not an oil and resource-rich region that we wanted a sort of entree into. And so, yeah, no, obviously what he says is 100% spot on. In fact, if you remember Donald Trump, when he ran in 2016, he described Israel-Palestine as potentially the greatest real estate deal ever. If I can negotiate that would be the best real estate deal ever. Because that is how Trump views things, and that is clearly how the Israelis view things. I mean, they talk about it in terms that are pretty precise and pretty unmistakable when you look at their plans for the West Bank. Just look at what they do in the West Bank. I mean, it is a development project,
Right.
They move the Palestinians out the way, people move wildlife out here if they want to build a housing project, I mean, it's a crude way of saying it but that's the way they view it, and it's pretty obvious. In terms of the flotilla itself, it's really a distillation of the illegality of everything Israel is and does. You have a civilian fleet of ships coming in, self-funded, unarmed, with missions that are completely humanitarian in nature, and now they're going to threaten to lock Greta Thunberg up as a terrorist. Yeah, because the first time was kind of the warning, and as I understand, one of your conditions of release is that you won't come back.
Yeah, right.
And so now
they did that with Lafredo, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, they told Lafredo, don't come back. I'm sure you didn't have to tell him twice not to come back. Yeah, so now that these threats are, I mean, it just shows you everything about who they are and what they do as a state is illegal. The occupation itself is illegal. The blockade is illegal. The use of starvation as a weapon of war, of course, blatantly illegal. And if they weren't so committed to pursuing that strategy, what issue could there be with a humanitarian vessel coming onto the shores of Gaza? Don't forget, they're not going to Israel. They're going to Gaza. I mean, that tells you everything right there. which we know it's an occupation. Like we know, like it feels, just as our next segment does, it feels strange articulating this because it's just so obvious at this point that you almost feel like the next story we're doing, I had to talk myself into doing it because it's the most obvious thing in the world. I'm talking about the genocide experts deeming this a genocide, right? You almost feel strange even saying it because it's like if we came on here and did a show about how 2 + 2 = 4, right? Who wants to watch that, right? Boring. But it has to be said because this is the world we live in, and people act on these assumptions, and it's just really astounding to see. And part of doing this Uhuru project, learning from the chairman about colonialism and practice and stuff, it reaffirms what I've been saying all along, which is that, yeah, look, we're Americans, so I guess we have a duty to do what we can, but ultimately the solution to this is not coming from within these borders in these United States. It's just not. I mean, you look at the rest of the world is almost in one voice on the same page on this. We are the barrier. Obviously, we are the obstacle. We're the ones who veto these ceasefire resolutions at the UN, right? We're the ones who are backing Israel to the hilt. Even as European country after European country, many of which are pretty friendly to Israel, are saying they're going to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly, later this month. The United States is sanctioning the Palestinian representatives so that they can't come. We are clearly the obstacle here. And so, yeah, we have a duty to do what we can, but we also have to have the humility to understand that the solution is going to come from the rest of the world. This country is just too far gone at this point to lead any sort of change in that way. It's not to say we can't do our part to sort of, pull up the back end of that to the extent that we can, but the hope is not here in the U.S., obviously. It's just it's painfully obvious at this point, I think.
I definitely, spending time with the chairman is very inspiring figure. One of the points he made when we really got into theory towards the end of the interview, and he made this point a few times, was, part of his problem with a lot of Marxists or communists is that very often they don't address the colonial question. And he really very strongly emphasized the point that the whole capitalist system is dependent on colonialism. Like, you can't address the one without addressing the other. And Israel is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, that point of the interviews that we have is very revealing and I think very insightful because what happens when people do voice those concerns? Well, a lot of times they get shut down from within the left by saying, well, you're being divisive and polarizing for bringing that up. Why? Because this is a majority white country and you don't want to alienate white people by talking like that. Well, that's just the truth. Like there's never been a left there's never been a successful left that doesn't address that and reckon with that. And so trying to sort of like sweep that under the rug and indulge this fantasy that if we can only win enough Archie Bunkers back to, militant labor activism, we're going to overthrow capitalism. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The path always runs through colonized people. It's not about the color of your skin. It's about the power dynamics under which you live. Well, and, because if you don't have a critique of that and you don't act on that in the way that these groups like the Uhuru movement does, then you're just jerking off at the end of the day. Sorry to put it so crudely, but that's ultimately what it is. Like, people have to have the maturity to reckon with that because it's inescapable. And that's what this Israel thing is. This is colonialism. That is an inescapable dynamic. You can't talk about it without discussing that. And, white supremacy, again, this is a word that the elements of the PMC left have poisoned, so it's hard to talk about that. White supremacy is a function of that. In other words, it is I should say it functions within that. It's not it functions within that. It is a lot of what fuels that because it is what gets a lot of people to co-sign something that they wouldn't normally co-sign because it makes them feel like the in-group in some sort of power position, even though ultimately they have no real power position.
Yes, and you could definitely argue because really Yeshitela is arguing that black should be at the vanguard of any revolution. And, just on a practical level, going back to what you were saying about bringing in Archie Bunkers, we touched a little bit on the Weather Underground because I'm pretty familiar with that history. And I asked him, well, how did you all feel about the fact that they could just kind of leave the revolution when it wasn't fun anymore? And they were able to get good lawyers because they came from rich families mostly.
Right.
They were able to just leave. That's part of the problem. For white revolutionaries, there's always going to be the offer of mainstreaming back into the ruling class.
Right, exactly.
Whereas colonized people, because of the underlying racism, never have the option really of becoming full-fledged members of the ruling class.
Right.
They can always at best be members with an asterisk, where you're only admitted into those halls as long as you do the bidding of the colonizers to a T and without a fault. Very much like Obama did with his Citibank cabinet, right?
Right, exactly.
His position there was dependent on his subservience to the same power structures that existed without him. And that's what Yeshitela defines as neocolonialism, where you take a guy like Obama and put his face on the same policies. But yes, that is why when you get a group like DSA that's almost entirely a bunch of white kids, they don't have much to say beyond domestic policy as a rule. And he made that point too, that very often what it's about is just making things better for themselves.
Right. Exactly. Crystal Water says people turning hard on Alex. Trump is now one of the evil globalists. Sadly, we can't be optimistic anymore. Owen is killing it. MAGA is here for it. P.S. If I had a wiener, I would put it in the wall. Thanks, Crystal, for that.
I look, man, I might break my rule and go to Israel just to fuck that wall.
To fuck the wall. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. They take you away. Say, what? I thought this is what I'm supposed to do.
I thought that's what you're supposed to do. Why is everybody leaning on the wall? I thought they were fucking the wall.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
not fucking the wall.
What's going on? I was duped. Born in Namibia, living in Germany and South Africa, 50-50. Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Well, thank you, Nujoma. Appreciate that. Xander Varkov, had the DeLorean not worked at the beginning of Back to the Future, Marty would have had his nuts hooked up to the car battery at a CIA black site. Yes, thank you for that. That's probably true. That would have been a good alternate, alternate version of that movie where it doesn't work. He's a crackpot and he ends up getting tortured.
Let's do that sketch.
That would be funny. Yeah. John Smith, thanks for the $1.99. Shout out to all certified hand biters. Thank you, John Smith. Race Car, thanks for the $20. Hey, how about that left-wing influencer scandal? The left was being kind of cheap. The right-wing influencers got like $40K a month from some Russian dude, but this left-wing organization was only offering a paltry $8K. Yeah. Well, people work cheap, and you're right. On the right, there tends to be more money in some cases, but in some cases not. If you look at that SodaGate scandal, it was $1,000.
Tops.
Yeah.
Tops. In a lot of cases, it was a few hundred, and they were all like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Now, granted, like none of them were top level people, but they were visible. Like they had an account. Like Clown World is an account.
Yeah.
Like
that's a big account. Yeah.
But like for Benny in the closet, I'm sure you got to pay more than $1,000 if you want him to hawk sugar.
Right. Yeah, that's probably. I would imagine so. All right, folks, we'll take a quick game break here. Quick word from John Koa, who is one of our dissident sponsors. He has a new single out called Just a Little Off the Rails. The core of these new songs, which is on an upcoming album called A to Z, was a collection of live acoustic performances between 2017 and 2020. He was going to release the solo acoustic recordings, but he didn't feel like releasing music while witnessing the state of world affairs that we talk about a lot on this show. So he waited and continued recording them in the studio, and now he is in the process of releasing the full band recordings of these. So the first single is called Just a Little Off the Rails. It's a great song, and it features acoustic guitar, bass, vocals, and slide with some great autobiographical lyrics. A great tune. We've played it when we switched to Rumble from time to time on the show. You can head over to John Koa's Spotify and give it a listen. You can also find him on Apple Music or a link to all of his socials at dudissidents.com/. Front/COA. All righty. Let's move right on along here. Noah Goop says Greg Stocker has a podcast called Colonial Outcasts. He's been on RBN, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure he would come on the
does
show.
he?
Yeah, that would be terrific.
Oh, does
we
he?
would
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that.
I would love to have him on.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, that would be great. All right, perfect. Mark Pugliese says, in the 70s, a Jewish friend told me that despite all the imperialism, he still supported the U.S. because the U.S. supported Israel. Respond? Well, I mean, that is, yeah, that is the asterisk for a lot of progressive, except for Palestine people.
Yeah, well, that's the logic jail that they live in right there. The idea that they'd be anti-imperialism and not see Israel as imperialist.
Right. Exactly.
No, dude, it's amazing.
I asked Bernie
man.
the other day, should Israel exist as a Jewish state? He said yes, and I could tell you why, but then he doesn't say why. Then he goes on.
Yeah.
Right. Because the only answer is you're a Jewish supremacist and a white racist. That's the only answer. That's why when we covered Dean Phillips and he talked about how, yeah, they have a right to exist as an apartheid state. Okay, so if you're saying an apartheid state has the right to function as an apartheid state, if you're a white Jewish guy saying that, then you are.
Well, they'll deny it.
Right.
They'll deny it. They'll tell you about all the Arabs who have equal rights in Israel.
Yeah, right, exactly. But if you're saying that as a white Jewish guy, I think it's a totally safe assumption to say that you're both a white racist and a Jewish supremacist. If you're a Christian saying that, if you're not Jewish, then I think it's still fair to call you a white racist because that's all you can be. That's all you can. If you defend an apartheid system, that's all you can be. It's as simple as that. There's really nothing too complicated about it.
I am finding the people who are going to go down with the ship are just getting crazier and crazier because as the contradictions become more and more obvious, what can they say to, well, okay, you say they have equal rights in Israel, they don't. But okay, you say that. Well, what about the West Bank? Well, it's our land. They used to not say that. Now I'm starting to hear more and more of that. Well, it's our land. What do you mean that's your land? Well, you can't take land that belongs to you.
Right. Yeah.
Like, look, if the basic premise of Israel holds for you, then of course, ultimately, that's going to extend to other territories.
Right. Right. Of course. Absolutely. All right. We will move right on along. All right, folks. So this is a segment that I thought maybe it's too obvious to do, but then I found a response to this that was just so infuriating that I thought, you know what? We can hang a segment on that. I'm referring, of course, to this work of scholarly brilliance here. Israel committing genocide in Gaza, world's leading experts say. So you may have seen this come across your Twitter feed the last few days. It's made kind of a big splash, despite being, like I said, so obvious it seems almost weird to be reading this. But the world's leading association of genocide scholars has declared that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. A resolution passed by the International Association of Genocide Scholars states that Israel's conduct meets the legal definition as laid out in the UN Convention on Genocide. Across a 3-page resolution, the IAGS presents a litany of actions undertaken by Israel throughout the 22-month-long war that it recognizes as constituting genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Okay, so we're not going to read in detail what the report is, but I do have to bring this up whenever it's relevant here to just introduce to you what the legal definition and criteria for genocide is. So here we go. Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. Killing members of the group. Check. Okay, so right there, guilty. B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Check again. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Obviously, they fit that criteria. D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. Obviously, attacks on almost every hospital. Check. And E, the fifth one, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. They haven't done that yet, but it is despite their best efforts that they haven't done that yet. They are actively trying to displace the Palestinians into neighboring countries. They're shopping around these people to these different countries who will take them in. So Israel is guilty, indeed, of 4 of the first 5, and they are trying to commit the 5th as we speak. And if they had their way, they would have committed that long ago. So it's cut and dry. It is simply cut and dry as a matter of legal fact that they are committing a genocide, which makes this new report all the more frustrating. The fact that it's coming out now in September of 2025 or August when it was published, especially since on October 9th, 2023, with that definition in mind that I just read you, let's just read this. On October 9th, 2023, following the Hamas-led attacks on Israel, the Israeli government announced a complete siege of the Gaza Strip, cutting off supplies of water, electricity, fuel, and food. So on October 9th, Israeli Infrastructure Minister Israel Katz announced an immediate halt of water supplies from Israel to Gaza. Electricity cut off. Israel's energy minister ordered a complete cut of the electricity supply to Gaza on October 9th. Okay, so that is genocide right there. That is genocidal intent right there. No questions asked. If you are imposing a blockade and then you cut off water to a population, that is an act of genocide. 2 days after October 7th, you could say that was genocide. When do we come on the air? I think that day, that night, because it happened on a Friday. We were off Saturday, and we went on the air Sunday, and we told you this is genocide right now. Right now. So this international group of scholars is almost 2 years late, but they are now giving certain media organs permission to call this genocide since now the experts said it. So Paul Graham comes out saying it's official. It's genocide. Now, I knew this was going to happen in certain corners of the internet in response to this report. Why? Because experts is a buzzword, especially in anti-woke media circles. So who jumped on this? Eric Weinstein. Look at the balls on this prick. The experts have spoken. Also, Biden is sharp as a tack in closed meetings. All climate science equals settled science. Only racists think COVID could have anything to do with a lab in Wuhan. Inflation doesn't come from printing fiat, and nature has no affinity for a gender binary. So you see what he's saying? He's saying the same experts that told you the lab leak was a conspiracy theory are saying it's a genocide. Expert bad, non-expert good. Experts say genocide, that means no genocide. That is the lizard brain that he is talking to when he tweets this out. And he's not done. This post isn't about Paul, the guy who said it's official, nor is it about what is happening to Gazans. Oh, it seems like it's pretty strongly about what's happening to Gazans. Yeah, I would have to call bullshit on that, Mr. Weinstein. That's adorable. It's about experts. I believe in expertise. This isn't it. Why? Have you cited any, can you cite bias? Like, did the PLO give this group, $5 million to write that paper? Because that would be an indication of bias. You're not actually saying anything to impugn the validity of the paper or the finding. This is just vague talk of the experts lied about masks, so that means there's no genocide. Right. It's the cheapest, easiest, sleaziest, most cynical thing you can do, is just you latch on to this sort of vague, amorphous truth and see how you can connect this issue to that as a way to undermine this claim of genocide. Experts need to either assert their independence from the pastors or face irrelevancy. Experts and scholars need to stop delivering politics. Okay, well, douchebag, it is a board of genocide experts. So genocide is kind of an inherently political topic, is it not? Like the idea they need to stop delivering politics. Well, to charge a country with genocide is a political statement in and of itself. There's no escaping politics of that. So what do you mean they need to stop delivering politics? What you're saying is they would need to just disband. He goes on. Right. Yeah. Many professors claim I am weakening a belief in expertise by sowing doubt. No, not at all. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. I am saying that the experts don't deliver these crisp, simplistic political conclusions. Again, they're talking about genocide. Yes, yeah. It is. If you go back to the definition of genocide, which I showed you 5 minutes ago, it's pretty cut and dry. Killing members of the group, destroying the mental health capacities for members of the group, inhibiting births among members of the group. They're doing all that. It's pretty simplistic. It's not complicated. It's not complicated at all. In fact, I would argue we don't need a panel of genocide experts to tell us this is a genocide, which is why it's kind of ridiculous that story made as big a splash as it did. But here we are. I am saying that those who deliver these claims are not the experts. The experts are the ones these people fire for dissenting. Based on what? Based on what? What are you talking about? You're just farting this into the air. This is what I mean. It's the laziest grift on earth. Are you making some connection to like the people who, you know, dissented about COVID, got fired and ostracized, and so they're the real experts, and you can apply that to this? How? Citing what specific examples of bias or ignorance or anything? He doesn't actually address any substance. He's just saying, hey, experts lied to you a few years ago, so we should distrust everything that comes out of a supposed expert world. They are the policy entrepreneurs in expert clothing. I don't even know what the fuck that even means. Oh, the policy entrepreneurs in expert clothing. Yeah, no, this panel of genocide scholars has really influenced global policy. That's why the genocide's been going on for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the policy entrepreneurs, the people who wrote this paper. That's why nothing has been done to stop Israel over these past 2 years. You still have experts. They just aren't sitting in expert chairs anymore. So that's his take. So if you go to the IAGS website, you could see who's a member of the board. You could see who the high-ranking people responsible for this paper are. If you have any like information on any of these people to suggest they're compromised or biased, you could look it up and produce that evidence. They disclose, you know, who leads the organization right on their website. So if you wanted to research a name or two and come to us with some reason to distrust their findings, you could do that. But no, he didn't do that. Why? What he's saying is based on nothing. This is the anti-woke grift in action. He knows there are millions of people who follow him, who distrust experts. He knows distrust of experts is, in fashion now with his readership. And so he pushes that button in order to indulge genocide denial. So here's Luca responding. We don't need experts to know that Israel is reckless, genocidal, and out of control. They state their aims openly for anyone to hear. Your point about expertise in and has been a good one, but it does not apply here. Put your Jewish bias aside and open your eyes. Yeah, you're going to see quite a lot of that in the replies. Chris Martinson, good news. We don't need experts to determine moral issues. They are self-evident. Yes, shame on you, says Arkinian. The experts see you for who you are and they call you out. So you go to the alternative Dumb and Dumber universe to pretend to have clout. You're an idiot. That's exactly right. What about the Israeli military's own data indicating a civilian death rate of 83% in the Gaza war? Here's some more really disturbing evidence of genocide, the most devastating transition ever. So if you take a look at this is Gaza, July 8th, 2023, and it's going to show you that same strip of road now, September 1st, 2025. So yeah, do we need experts to tell us that this is genocide? No, we don't. But you have, cynical douchebags like Eric Weinstein throwing that out as a red herring, right? The expertise, the credentials of the people behind that report are irrelevant. They are irrelevant. We don't need them to tell us that this is genocide. That's common sense. But to see a guy like that just revert to, well, the experts lied to you about X, that means experts lie about everything. So if experts say genocide, that means no genocide. That's what he's engaging in there. Just hackery, just abject hackery. It's amazing. These people just have absolutely zero shame whatsoever.
Yeah, he's really just bitter that he can only sell his general unified theory of everything to people who don't know basic algebra, and is completely shunned by the general academic community that might be in a position to conceive of the flaws in his work. I am sure if you came up with a real unified theory of everything, there'd be quite a lot of buzz about it. But it seems that everyone's just ignoring it. He just went on a whole campaign recently talking about how this was his legacy.
Yeah. Much. I hardly ever listen to what he has to say. I know his brother is the one who I hear from more.
Yeah, he calls it the 14-dimensional observerse. I mean, Theo Vaughn bought it.
Is that right?
Is that right? So you're saying there's 14 dimensions, so there's 14 of me?
Yeah, right.
Is that what you're saying, Doc?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very bitter about that. That everyone pretty much he made a big show of it, and everyone just kind of ignored it. But yeah, he said that was going to be his legacy. Yeah, I mean, this is what I saw when I went to the douchebag dialogues. We were talking about this earlier. What you have to remember with a lot of these people is they're not just getting paid in the obvious way off of their subscribers or patrons and so on. They're also getting paid behind the scenes by government agencies and actors. And I saw that very clearly when I went to douchebag dialogues. And, I'm expecting them to talk anti-woke kind of stuff, which they certainly did. But the contradiction was so obvious because this is right at the height of the Columbia protests. And they're supposedly dissidents who support speech, and they almost didn't even mention that, or if they did mention it, generally in a hostile way. You had a couple of honest actors there, like Li Fang, who brought it up in the right way, but mostly no. But what was most revealing was, okay, man, so this is mostly about culture and that kind of thing, right? I mean, that's the whole premise. They had a whole display about Uyghur genocide. Who paid for that? Who paid for that? Because I talked to the trigonometry guys, and I always forget his name. Oliver is the British one. Is that his name?
Yeah, I forget his name.
I always forget that guy's fucking name. And he was talking about how much money they were losing on this. Okay. And I guess that's true because they never did another one, right? So who paid for that? Because that costs money, man, to get somebody to do the graphics for that. And it was a whole display. It was a whole room about the Uyghur genocide. So you're doing this on a tight budget. It's not really making money, and you pay to do that. There was quite a lot of that. Of course, you had, the pussyless one over there talking about Iran and the horrors of the Muslim. What's her name? Hersi Ali without the pussy. Look, I mean, you really can't blame her for holding a grudge. I get it. But, why at this thing that's basically supposed to be about these, woke and anti-woke issues, why are they pushing a foreign policy agenda that could have come off the desk of James Baker as easily as it could have come off the desk of Antony Blinken? You're calling yourselves dissidents. Why is it in this foreign policy area you're completely in lockstep with the American imperial project, right down to having absolute conviction about who the enemies are, and they're the usual suspects. You want to talk about Uyghur labor? I mean, we got forced prison labor right in this country. They're not going to talk about that at the dissident dialogues. I mean, that anyone who's watched a show for a while knows, that experience of going to that was very eye-opening for me. I was much more sympathetic to these figures, because I do agree with some of the arguments about the excesses of that, as I've covered very much. What I saw there was, that's not what this is about. This is about using those kinds of cultural grievances, legitimate and otherwise, to sheepdog people into supporting American foreign policy. That's what that is actually about. And that's a prime example of it.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Dorian Marquis says Greta is more alpha than weak MAGA trolls. Yes, I agree. Let's see. CEB Applejack. Hey, Applejack. 1630s fund is not dark money. You just don't know who donates. They still have lights. Dark money obviously doesn't use light. They are dark. Thank you, Applejack. Appreciate that very much. All right. Hey, folks, if you like what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, the best way you can do that is to become a member at dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/ locals. Perks of membership include film club live streams, post-game shows once a month with Q&A call-ins. Also, you get to call in every Sunday night for our weekly Q&As over on Rumble after the main show concludes. You also get ad-free replays of every live stream we do the day after they air. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch it back with ad interruption, you get an ad-free live stream emailed directly to you, your own private link. You could watch it commercial-free, just as if you're catching it live. Our members are the backbone of the project. We could not do this Uhuru documentary without the support of our members. So we thank you all very much. Members will also get a credit at the end of the film. We did that for the Jose doc, and we will do that again for this one. So if you are a member, you will be credited in the end credits of the Uhuru documentary. So you guys, once again, as we always say, are the backbone of the show, and we thank you very much for your support. I love this one, Eric Husso. All in all, it was just another cock in the wall. Good one, Eric Husso. Appreciate that. Eric says, if you were Christian, you could have gotten some rabbi spit to lube up before banging the wall. That's true. We could have. Yes, that was a good idea. See, these are good brainstorming sessions. We should bring those to InfoWars. Could do a segment on InfoWars about that. Yeah.
Sure, we'll do it with Rex.
Yeah, there you go, with Rex Jones. Agita says, in concert with the IAG's pronouncement, the Department of Ursine Health wishes to be known that they can confirm that bears do shit in the woods. Yes, thank you for that. Appreciate breaking that news. Maybe we could do a segment on that. Maybe Eric Weinstein will tell you, no, they don't shit in the woods. That's what the experts want you to think.
Yeah, I looked at this a little more, and as I suspected, he's been just roundly mocked by the actual scientific community. See, that's why he's bitter. That's why he's bitter.
Weinstein.
Yes. While provocative, the theory has faced criticism and skepticism from the scientific community for lacking clear connections to existing quantum theory and containing mathematical inconsistencies.
Oh, well, what do they know?
That's just the experts.
That's just the experts. What do they know? They're the liars, right? The real experts are the ones who those people fire. So that's who you should trust for everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so lazy. Like, you understand there's no thought required to absorb that. Like, oh, well, the experts told us this and that was true.
Right.
Therefore, every time expert says this, that must be true. Like, I'm sorry, how fucking stupid and thoughtless do you have to be to actually like adopt that as a way of thinking? I mean, you just have no brain whatsoever.
Yeah, I do think, look, I mean, things change, times change. It's always hard when you're caught up in a moment to see its end. But look, man, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, yeah, like you seriously had to worry about losing your job for saying, I think if you have a pussy, you're a woman, right? And that's past. This is going to pass too, and it's always bad for the people who got out in front. Like, these people are going down. The more Trump's policies affect their core audience, the less of an audience they're going to have. And these motherfuckers are not going to have a lot of other options for putting food on the table when this whole thing collapses.
Yes, I agree with that. We are at 1,039 likes. All right. I think we got time for one more. We do have some production on the Uhuru doc later this evening, but
we're doing our last interviews.
Yes, with Penny Hess and Jesse Neville this evening.
Of the Uhuru 3.
That's right. That's right. So we will have interviewed all three of them when all is said and done. But we do have time for one last segment. This, oddly enough, is a St. Louis story, which is fitting since we are partly in St. Louis right now. So News Nation put this out. Did the government poison a city? Inside the Army's secret tests in St. Louis. During the Cold War, the U.S. government carried out experiments on Americans without knowledge or consent. Former residents of a St. Louis neighborhood demand to know what the Army sprayed in their neighborhood. Army admits it sprayed a chemical containing cadmium, a carcinogen. One researcher asks, did they also spray radiation. So News Nation actually did a big video report on this. We're going to play a few minutes of it right now.
Fog drifted through the streets like a ghost.
That's exactly what it looked like, a thick fog.
It was summertime and it was hot. We would just run through it as fast as we could and try to just cool ourselves off. It stuck to you.
The spray was so foul as far as the odor. It made some of us have headaches, nausea, dizziness.
That's what I remember. It made me sick.
It wasn't the weather. It was an eerie smoke descending from rooftops, rolling from the backs of trucks.
Regular flatbed truck, but it had a big machine on the back. And it had a big nozzle that really sprayed a fog you couldn't even see through. It was that thick. And it really, we felt it as it would adhere to our skin. And as far as the guys on top of the buildings, they tried to portray them to us as maintenance workers. But we was like, what is a maintenance worker doing? And basically a hazmat suit. And they had masks and goggles.
In the 1950s and 60s, in secret, the U.S. Army sprayed zinc-cadmium sulfide into the air of a St. Louis housing project, a largely black neighborhood called Pruitt-Igoe.
It was a lose-lose situation for us in Pruitt-Igoe. We were subjects. We were subjects.
They didn't ask for our permission. We didn't ask for them to spray us. My government used me like I was a guinea pig.
We're standing at where Pruitt-Igoe used to be here in St. Louis, and it's hard to believe more than 10,000 people used to live here. As we bring our drone up, you can see it's mostly just an empty lot now, overgrown with trees. This used to be filled with 33 high-rise buildings. It was all demolished in 1976. And according to the National Research Council, St. Louis was chosen for spraying experiments because it had similar characteristics to Soviet targets like Moscow in terms of population density and terrain and proximity to a
So here, this American city has similar statistics to Moscow in terms of terrain and population density. Even though we're not in a hot war with Moscow, why don't we just do some science experiments on our own people? Because, hey, this city, even though it's within our borders and there's people living here, it's kind of similar to Moscow. So let's see what this shit can do. I mean, think of how diabolical, right? But nothing new, obviously, and nothing that ended, 50 years ago either.
Well, if you see the Flint documentary, they show the military using parts of Flint for target practice.
Of course. Yep. Look at East Palestine, Ohio. They could have done a proper cleanup job, but they needed the rails open. So yeah, fuck it. We'll just let it go. We'll call it a controlled burn, right? Yep. Fuck it. Let it ride.
The government now admits to a secretive series of Cold War tests, including one dubbed large area coverage. More than 30 tests conducted across the U.S. and Canada, spraying zinc-cadmium sulfide from planes, rooftops, and vehicles to simulate how a biological attack might spread, all to prepare for potential warfare against the Soviets.
Many of us been in the military and had top secret clearances. We know how it works.
We have died for America. We have fought for America.
You are a veteran.
I am United States Air Force veteran.
Dr. Starks, you're a veteran as well,
Yes, I am. I'm an Air Force veteran also.
Is there a sense of betrayal here?
Definitely.
They want to know if those secret tests have anything to do with what they're observing with their own eyes.
I lost my two older siblings to cancer. I lost a brother last month.
I've been diagnosed recently with a rare form of lymphoma.
I had cancer of the left kidney, had partial removal of my left kidney.
News Nation reached out to the Army for answers. They provided a one-page response. It says the Army's own Center for Health Promotion and Preventive Medicine investigated in 1994 and found inhalation exposure would not pose a health risk. They also cite later corroborating reviews, including a 1997 review by the National Research Council. Perhaps they assumed we wouldn't read the NRC's 380-page report, but we did, and the Army's statement doesn't show the full picture. In that 1997 review, the National Research Council explicitly says repeated exposure to zinc-cadmium sulfide can cause kidney or bone toxicity or lung cancer if levels are high enough. And they admitted they couldn't fully assess the risk.
Okay, So you get the picture there, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
one
And they're
layer.
still lying about it.
Of course, just one layer of criminality over another, and then one cover up after another, after the next. When you see a story like this, you really are reminded just how little certain people mean to their own government. And, this is an inevitability of capitalism as well. Bit of a theme of the show today. In a system where money buys power, systems that generate too little capital are just not useful when it comes to pursuing, obtaining, and wielding power. Therefore, people in those areas mean absolutely nothing to their own government, who is tasked with, first and foremost, protecting their safety. That is the first and foremost, your duty as the government is the safety of your people. And to see incidents after incident of neglect, if not outright malice in this case, when you see this over and over again, it is really not too difficult to see why so many people just consider the government a hostile occupying force. I mean, if you walk around North St. Louis, it is plainly evident that the government does not care at all about the people living there. Not about their health, not about their safety, not about their longevity, nothing. Not about their kids, nothing. Zero. Absolutely zero. I have a little more. Do you have anything to say to that?
Well, yeah. They went to the housing projects, of course. They didn't go to the white parts of town. And then you have, you have this very bizarre conversation going on right now. That's one of the things that's been really striking me since I've been here. Not for the first time, but it's the contradictions becoming even more clear. The fact that you have so many pissed off working class white people who've been worked up into a lather about how oppressed they are and how racism has been solved. And there are so many advantages that people who are not white have. I mean, it's just absurd. You go all over this country, man. There's a fucking street that literally divides black from white. And you don't have, I bet you could guess which is the nicer side of that street. And hey, man, it's not that the conditions have not degraded for those working class white people. They've degraded so that you're getting a taste of what everyone else has been experiencing. Now, maybe so imagine that was the whole history of your family, what you're experiencing now. Would you see America as a place that was good to you, that you owed something to? When the police come into your neighborhood, would you see that as people who are there to protect you? Or would you see that as occupiers? You see it that way now. That's the irony. Because so much of that population is adopting the deep suspicions of the government, of authority, of the police that non-white people have always had. And yet, at the same time, want to criticize it in other populations. It's a very bizarre thing. Like, you go around the country, it is very obvious that there are two completely different Americas. Now, you want to say it's not as simple as just race. Some of it has to do with college education. Some of it has to do with class. Yeah, sure. Those things tend to track race. Not strictly, not in every case, but broadly speaking, yeah. You go to the nice market here, there are some black people, but it's mostly white people. You go to the north side, and the white people mostly disappear.
Yeah, well, another city with a similar dynamic is, of course, New Orleans. And this story kind of surfaces right around the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And watching that story made me think of this great clip with Spike Lee on the Bill Maher show. This is from 20 years ago, speculating about the levees being sabotaged, which flooded the lower Ninth Ward. Another panelist in this conversation happens to be Tucker Carlson, the old neocon version of Tucker Carlson. So let's take a look at this.
Today, Louis Farrakhan did a kind of a reunion of the Million Man March. I don't think we got 1 million people this time. But he was saying last Saturday in Washington that he thinks that the federal government, there was a conspiracy to actually blow up those levees so that they would flood the poor black districts in New Orleans. I have to tell you, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe it. But when you see some of the things that have gone on in this country...
Exactly. It's not far-fetched. And also, I like to say, it's not necessarily blow it up, but the residents of that ward, they believe that there was a Hurricane Betsy in '65. They felt the same thing happen where a choice had to be made. One neighborhood, we got to save one neighborhood and flood another hood, flood another neighborhood. Look, if we're in L.A.
No, that's been done before.
Well, it's been done before. Not only has it been done before, first of all, in the case of New Orleans, the very fact that the white neighborhood is in the higher elevation part of town and the black neighborhood is in the lower elevation part of town, well, that is engineering of a kind right there. If the situation were reversed, which it wouldn't be, but if it were, you could bet your ass those levees would be fortified. And whether they were blown up or not, nobody knows. I would tend to believe I haven't seen evidence that they were, per se. But we know for sure, we don't need proof of this. I mean, we have proof of this. We know that they were underfunded and ill-maintained. And the reason they were underfunded and ill-maintained is because they guarded the black part of town. There's no doubt about that. Like, that's not even a controversial statement. All right, we'll keep going.
We're in L.A., and there's an emergency situation. We call from Beverly Hills, we call from Compton. Which one the cops coming to first?
Right. But that's different than proactively blowing up a levee to flood one neighborhood. I'm not saying it's not possible.
But that would require a conspiracy. Look, we can all understand. Anybody with any knowledge of history can understand why a lot of people feel this way, that that's a reasonable theory. But it would also require a conspiracy at 3 levels of government, that would the local, the state, and the federal. It would require no white
presidents have been assassinated. So why is that so far-fetched?
Because it would require no white person in the government to have a moral compass. It would require no black person to have a spine. And I think that's not
true at all. I mean, you see what happens to people with a moral compass and a spine. They get shoved out or locked up or whatever.
That's a very hard case
to make. Let me ask
make.
you a question. Do you think that election in 2000 was fair? You don't think that was rigged?
It's not a question of being fair. It's a question.
You don't think that was rigged? If they could rig an election, they could do anything.
But you know how it was
you're
rigged.
saying. I was in New Orleans right after the hurricane in the 9th Ward. And while I didn't hear anybody say the levee was blown up by the federal government, I did interview a bunch of people who were stuck there who said they believed this was part of a conspiracy to rid New Orleans of black people. They honestly believed that. I didn't argue with them.
Right.
I just listened to what they said, and I felt bad for them. So as you sit here, who is someone who is rich and has options, and are watched by people who are poor and have no options, it seems to me it's your responsibility, your obligation to tell them the truth. And you know the truth, which is the federal government did not blow up those levees. So don't feed the paranoia and the craziness.
How is that feeding the paranoia?
Because you're saying it's entirely possible when you know perfectly well it's not entirely possible.
How is that possible?
The federal government.
There was an old man, I believe they call him a voodoo. He summoned a demon. I got raped right now.
There were no cops around to save me.
Right there on Bourbon Street. I think his name was Papa Legba. He took me like a child.
The government blew up the levees. A, there's zero evidence. B, it's difficult to blow up a levee. C, there were news cameras all around. Nobody saw it. I mean, let's be real here.
Because nobody saw it. Because nobody saw it means it couldn't have happened.
It's okay. I could say.
Let me ask a question. Okay. With the history of this country, you ever heard of the Tuskegee experiment?
Look, I'm not going to sit here for your history lesson. I want to know what. Of course, I've heard of the Tuskegee experiment.
Let's explain to the audience what the Tuskegee experiment was.
I'm not even going to get into the history lesson.
Okay, see, and that's where this video cuts off. You know, whether it was blown up or not. Look, when we were surveying the tornado damage, the common understanding on the street in North St. Louis is that the reason the city government is not cleaning up after the tornado is because they want the people there to give up and move out so that they can gentrify that area. Right. So there is a matter of engineering there. You could say, what's the difference between that kind of neglect and deliberately proactively blowing up the levee? I would argue long term, there is no difference, because if your goal is to, ethnically cleanse the area and gentrify it so that it generates more revenue, then whether you blow up the levee or whether you sabotage the levee, knowing that eventually a storm is going to take out the lower 9th Ward, what is really the difference there? What is the difference in intent there? And now, 20 years later, after Katrina, New Orleans levees are sinking and short on money. The city continues to sink. Some of these budget cuts are endangering those levees. Again, Katrina was not a particularly powerful hurricane. That's why the French Quarter was not particularly damaged. It endured some minor damage, but it was not catastrophic the way it was here. So, yes, this was an engineered disaster. And I don't mean, the Jews and the weather. I mean, the fact that you had the levee. The levee was neglected. Was it neglected on purpose with malicious intent? Well, it may as well have been. The fact of the matter is the people in the lower Ninth Ward did not matter. And the people in the French Quarter did. And the property, most importantly, of the people in the French Quarter did. And so it made me think of this St. Louis story. And I just have to give a shout out to these documentaries that Spike Lee made, because this was one of the things that kind of inspired me to do this St. Louis piece. Is he did these two documentaries. One was a 4-parter, one was a 2-parter about New Orleans, and they are phenomenally done. He has such a distinct artistic style with his narrative features, and you really see in these films he brings that same artistic flair and style to a documentary film that he brings to his narrative fiction films. So you really are watching a movie that feels like an actual movie, but of course everything is 100% real. And so I wanted to shout those out because he made a documentary shortly after that interview. This was right after Katrina. But I thought it was worth pointing that out. You could never underestimate the contempt that the government has for its own people and the indifference that they will express because of that contempt to just unspeakable suffering. And so, therefore, when you see a story like that, those Cold War experiments in St. Louis, would they do that? Could they do that? The answer is yes, obviously. Like that is not even a barrier to understanding. Would they do this? I remember Barbara Walters tried to challenge Jesse Ventura on his 9/11 theory. And Barbara Walters says, so you're saying that George Bush would deliberately kill 3,000 of his own people? Well, you have to be a child to think he wouldn't. He killed almost 1 million people in Iraq. 5,000 American soldiers were killed there for no reason. So therefore, the question of would you morally put it past George Bush to kill thousands of innocent people? Well, that's not an argument. These people will. They simply don't care. They simply don't care. And that's what these stories expose, is the degree to which the government just absolutely does not care about its own people at all.
Yeah, with New Orleans, part of what the great tragedy of it was because of their very unique history. I got a tour guide license in New Orleans, so I had to do a lot of studying. And it's almost like an alternate history of the United States if France had really been the founding mother country rather than England. It's all tied more to French history and then Spain, which is not usual for most of the country in that period. A result of having been under French and then Spanish governance is that the slave codes were very different in that region from the British governed areas. Slaves were able to buy their freedom. They were able to work on their own. They were able to save money. I'm not saying it was benign. It was slavery. Right. But they had the opportunity to build some kind of an economic base that didn't exist anywhere else that you had slavery in the country. The result of that is you wound up with an unusually powerful, economically prosperous Black middle and upper class in New Orleans, strangely existing alongside this old white money planter slaver class. That culture, that unique in all the world culture, was largely wiped out by Katrina. It was truly a city that you could argue in a very special unique and singular way really belonged to Black people. And that's a big part of the tragedy of Katrina. Now, you want to talk about, did they want that? As Keaton says, it's kind of irrelevant. They didn't care. And certainly once it happened, the disaster capitalism kicked in right away, and they turned it into a gentrification opportunity. As a result, I've gone to New Orleans a lot since the 90s. New Orleans is gone. I mean, it doesn't really exist anymore as what it was. And I'm not just saying that as an outsider. The people who live there will be the first to tell you that, and they will be the first to tell you they used Katrina to clear that whole, not just the people, the whole culture they represented out of that city.
Right. Exactly. And it was an inevitability that if that infrastructure continued to decay, eventually that event would happen. Right. So was it intentional?
Right.
I mean, that's a
Right.
question of semantics, really. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
they knew it would happen. They did nothing to stop it. So is it intentional? That's a philosophical question for you to grapple with. I would argue, yes, it was. That's what I would argue. All right. We are going to close the lights on this stream in just a moment. Vito says, I am from St. Louis metro area, and stories like that make me ashamed to admit that I am from there. Uhuru. Thank you for showing it. Thank you, Vito, for that. Arthur Handy, thanks for the $5, says, as a Black man, I'm grateful to you both for covering the St. Louis story. It's maddening to think about. Well, thank you, Arthur. And thank you to, we got tagged a couple people because they knew we were in St. Louis this week. So a couple people on X tagged that story for us. That's how I found it. Because, it had some legs, but it wasn't like viral. But but some people did bring that to my attention. So thanks for that. Golnara Marchese, thanks for the $10 super sticker. Appreciate that. Larry Coldwater, thanks for the $7.99, says, our elites go to countries in the global south and see abject grinding poverty and say, why can't we have that? That is right. That is right. All right, I'm going to do a quick ad read for football season, then we'll get out of here. So, hey, folks, the countdown is over. The rivalries are real, and the road to the championship begins on August 23rd. Westwood One Sports brings you every electrifying moment of NCAA football from the first snap to the final whistle. Top teams, big plays, unforgettable Saturdays. Don't miss a second of the action. Listen to NCAA football on rumble.com, the Westwood One Sports app, on westwoodonesports.com, via Westwood One station streams, or by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports. If it's sports, it's on Westwood One. All right. That one's a mouthful, but they insist you stick to the script. I think what they're trying to really communicate there is Westwood One. I think that's what they're trying to get out. They're trying to make sure you understand.
That's what I took away from it.
Yeah, they're trying to make sure you know Westwood One. So I think we did our job for them. EO Shush says, Keaton, with your conspiracy theories, what are you going to tell me next? The government had ulterior motive when they saw the Native Americans were cold and gave them blankets. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, EO Shush. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks. Thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon. Pleasure to see you as always. I will be back on Thursday. I'm going to have a guest host with me on Thursday, it seems. But I will be back on Thursday afternoon. Could be 12, could be 1. Make sure you join our Substack to stay on top of that, depending on who I can procure to help me do the program. But we thank you all very much for being here this afternoon. Appreciate you all. We will, like I said, be back here on Thursday at noon, and then once again on Sunday evening. We're going to go wrap up the rest of this production, but thank you all very much for joining us today. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.